Welcome everybody to Brands Hatch and the fifth round of the 2020 Intelligent Money British GT Championship at one of the most famous circuits in the UK, and with good reason. This circuit presents a unique challenge unlike any other. The drivers all love it, the spectators have gathered expecting another great race, and it's our second 2-hour endurance race of the season that is coming up very, very shortly. Well, they call Kent the Garden of England. The garden was given a very good watering the other day. We've had a lot of rain in the week, but thankfully today, although it's overcast and a bit chilly, it has stayed dry so far. Ideal conditions then for racing. And as we head into the middle part of the season now, championship points starting to become especially important. And this, remember, was the venue 12 months ago where we saw perhaps the decisive moments between the two Barwell Motorsport Lamborghinis as they debated the championship lead. They got a bit caught up fighting with each other, and in the end it was the TF Sport Aston Martin of Johnny Adam and Graham Davidson that came through to win the race, and they would ultimately go on to claim championship honours a few weeks later at Donington Park. Well, this time around, although the date is the same, we are earlier in the campaign. This is the third event of 6 in the rescheduled 2020 Intelligent Money British GT calendar. We've been to Alton Park already for 2 one-hour sprint races. Then a couple of weeks ago, we were at Donington for a 2-hour enduro and another 1-hour sprint that was an all-time classic. Mixed conditions all day. Tyre choice was kind of thrown out the window a little bit, and we saw some of the best racing in recent history in the championship, and it really has set us up nicely coming in to this fifth round of the season. Arriving here, it is Barwell Motorsport on top. They lead the way in the GT3 Championship. Adam Ballon and Phil Keane leading the championship. The sister car, the 78 of Rob Collard and Sandy Mitchell, is third, and sandwiched between them is a Mercedes. Not this one, but the 69 Ram racing car of Sam Dahan and Patrick Kujala. Still looking for their first victory of the year, but they've been consistent top 5 finishers. It's all so close though at the top of both GT3 and GT4, where TF Sports Aston Martins may have stolen a bit of a march on the competition on outright pace at least, but as far as the points are concerned, it's still very, very tight at the top indeed, with HHC Motorsports McLarens not that far adrift. We've also got a couple of welcome returning faces into the championship this season, with the return of Aston Martin and Audi into the GT3 fray. The Aston Martin is courtesy of the Beechdean AMR team. Andrew Howard has his old partner Johnny Adam back alongside him at the wheel of the number 7 car, making their first appearance in 2020, and likewise the much anticipated debut of the Audi R8 LMS GT3 of Stella Motorsport. Richard Williams and Senan Fielding are out here today in GT3. There's also a new Century Motorsport BMW out in GT4. And as we get further into the year, we're hoping that more and more teams and drivers will start to make their way into the championship, be they for one-off entries or perhaps for the rest of the season. Well, looking ahead to the race that we've got today, we've got a McLaren on pole position after a very entertaining qualifying session in slightly mixed conditions yesterday afternoon. It was a cumulative effort basically from both drivers. So traditionally we have a pro session and an AM session, and the pro session sets the grid for one race, the AM session sets the grid for the other, but because we only have one race here today, they add the 2 times together, and it's the quickest cumulative time that takes pole position. It's the number 2 car for Jensen Team Rocket RJN that has the pole position ahead of our race today. McLaren from Lamborghini, indeed it's 4 different makes of car in the top 4 positions. Barwell Motorsports 78 Lamborghini lines up second, Ram Racing's number 6 Mercedes lines up third, and then on their return to the championship, the Beechdean car of Andrew Howard and Johnny Adam will line up on the outside of row number 2. So it goes to show the strength in depth we've got this season. Great variety that was rather McLaren dominated the opening round or so of the championship, but now everyone else starting to close in on them. Well, I mentioned the number 6 Ram Racing Mercedes that will start from the inside of row number 2. It will be started by Ian Loggy, but taken over after the pit stop by international GT racing superstar Jelmer Berman, who yesterday took time out of his day to talk us around a lap of the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit.
This is Jelmer Berman. I'm taking you around for a lap of Brands Hatch GP here in the Ram Racing Mercedes AMG GT3. So approaching Paddock Hill Bend, very characterized corner. Obviously drops away on the exit, so you have to try and rotate the car right at the top. Then approaching the slowest corner of the track, Druids, hairpin all the way down to first gear, and trying to put the car straight for a good exit. Then turn 3, which is actually quite a tight corner because it tightens up on the exit. So second gear, and then coming up to the next corner, which is Surtees, taking us back onto the GP part of the track. So the long circuit, really a great track. A lot of challenging corners, as you will see. The first one, even the most, I would say. It is quite open on the entry, but then tightens up towards the exit. So this is basically the part where it's starting to get tight and tricky. Then one gear down for Westfield, over the curb. Not much runoff on the exit, and going up towards Sheen, or as they would call it, Dingledale. Here also quite a bit of curb, and normally you use all of the track, not on this lap by the looks of it. And same here, trying to use all the curbs and trying to carry the momentum out of the corner towards the final part of the track. Final corner here, clearways. Again, this corner drops away on the exit, so it's very important to have the car rotated enough on the entry. That was it, a lap of Brands Hatch GP. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and enjoy the race.
Well, fantastic stuff there from Hjalmar Berman, who will be looking to try and get maybe a race victory. They could do with it, really, Ram Racing. The number 69 car is doing well in the championship, and the 6 is down 9th place in the points. And at the moment, Hjalmar Berman and Ian Lockie have only one podium finish to their credit, and they were 11th in the second race at Donington last time. They had a bit of a disaster with a couple of spins in the second race at Donington Park in very damp and greasy conditions. The rain never really disappeared all day. It did get dry enough for slicks in race 2, and that ultimately is what gave Team Parker Racing their first victory of the season in the Bentley Continental. You can see it just at the top of the shot there, the blue and black number 66 machine, which started the race on slick tyres, and that proved to be the correct choice, although they struggled for the first 5 or 10 minutes. After that, the track really came to them, and 66 were able to hold on to the lead just about from the Balfe Motorsport McLaren, which made its first appearance in GT3 2 weeks ago. But then in the second half of the race, Nick Jones really was able to stretch away in the lead of the race. This Ram Racing Mercedes has been on the podium twice so far this year, and they've got a really, really good average finish record as well. The 69 car, it is they've got the third best average finish of 4.5, but they've been really consistent all year long. A 5th and a 3rd at Alton, a 3rd and a 6th at Donington. So they are, sorry, 2nd and 8th, excuse me, at Donington. And the 69 car, with Sam Dehaan making the switch from Barwell Motorsports' mid-engined, low-slung Lamborghini to Ram Racing's big, muscular, front-engined Mercedes, and he's made that transition really well. And with Patrick Kajala alongside, fellow silver-graded driver, they are second place in the overall points, and they're also second place in the GT3 Silver Cup, confusingly behind the 78 Barwell Lamborghini of Rob Collard and Sandy Mitchell in the Silver Cup, despite the fact they're ahead of them in the outright championship rankings. Mia Fluitt and Ewan Hankey are the only Pro-Am entry in GT4 this year, and no one really quite knew where they were going to stack up against the influx of silver-graded teams in 2020, but they've done really well. They won at Alton Park in race number 2. They were second last time at Donington Park, held a little bit by tyre strategy. Again, they started on slicks from the pit lane, actually, and came through to lead the race in the final stint. But Mia Fluitt and Ewan Hankey, Ewan being the pro, Mia the am, they arrive at Brands Hatch 5th place in the points, only 22 points off the... only 12 points off the top of the championship table. It's exceptionally close in GT4. The top 5 cars covered by, as I said, just a dozen points or so. 2C's Motorsport's number 9 car here we're seeing, and 2C's Motorsport with their 2 McLaren 720S GT3s have both shown real promise this year, even though they haven't necessarily been able to deliver the ultimate results that I'm sure they would have liked. They've qualified well again here, actually. 5th for the 10 car, 6th for the 9 car. Jordan Witt will start number 10, and Angus Fender will start the number 9 example. And you can see the cars lined up in the grid here, ready and waiting to go out onto that grid. And what a tremendous sight they make. It was an uncertain start to the season, really, but SRO and all the British GT organisational team have done such a good job of getting a really strong grid together, actually. It's arguably the most competitive grid we've ever had, and although some of the cars that were on the initial entry list at the start of the season haven't yet been able to make it on track, the ones that have been here have produced some fantastic racing, and it really is too close to call. We are, though, about halfway through the season, so those who've stolen a bit of a march in the points in the early stages definitely are looking to try and cement their position as championship contenders over the course of this 2-hour encounter, which will feature, of course, a mandatory pit stop halfway through it. But we'll get to all of that in a moment or two, because what we can now do, thankfully, is head down into the pit lane. Kelvin Fletcher on presenting duties again this weekend at Brands Hatch. And one of the big stories coming into this round is the return of the Beechdene AMR team. Johnny Adam and Andrew Howard are back. They've qualified 4th on the grid, and Kelvin is down with them now.
Hello guys, great to be here, back here at Brands Hatch for the Intelligent Money British GT Championship. Now, we're just reaching the halfway stage of the competition this year. It's always interesting for a driver, because for me last year, I was in this position last year at Donington, where we were actually leading the Pro-Am Championship, 3rd overall, and we started to think about the championship points. Nothing changed for our race weekends. We still wanted to go out there and win, but we did keep a keen eye on the table, because this is coming to what they call the business end of the championship now. What I find interesting about this year, and about this car in particular, I was with Beechdene last year. Their colour scheme is reminiscent of the 2011-2012 Aston that Andrew Howard shared with Johnny Adam that was so successful back then. They've gone for a cool colour scheme. Andrew Howard is just getting in the car now. What's really interesting, they're only making their showing once this round. Andrew's not been in the car now for a little over 12 months. So whether Johnny and their approach has been slightly different, because normally as a driver, you're in the car every weekend. Johnny's here, actually. Johnny, I was just saying to the camera then, you were telling me before, Andrew's not been in the car for some time now. Does that mean for you, who's obviously coaching Andrew, has your approach been slightly different, or would you take this weekend as a normal race weekend?
Normal race weekend, really. Obviously, normal procedures. We've done simulator time before we got to this weekend, and you know, we were lucky to do a day's testing last week as well, because Andrew hadn't really driven much since September. So we've slotted straight in. The car's performing really well this weekend. We've made small changes as the weekend's gone on. The pace is there. Qualifying went well yesterday. I think we're 4th overall on the grid. So it's a mix between obviously doing well in Pro-Am in our class, but at the same time we're up against some really strong silvers out there. So we need to try and get a good result today, but the Aston's going really well around Brands.
Well, it's looking great so far. So there was actually got a great VT of Andrew and Johnny. So take a look now, guys.
Hey, listen, it's great to be back, and you know, I certainly didn't expect to be back this year, and I've got to say thank you to the sponsors that have allowed us to get back here. So that's the most important thing. I think Johnny will say, and you know, Johnny has always been a great coach within the drivers, and I think you'll say that if you're out the car for too long, it becomes very, very difficult. I think, like a lot of people, you know, we're looking to 2021 as a team now to understand where we're going and what we're doing. And I think the opportunity was here for me to race with Johnny, sharpen up and get the old team back together, so to speak.
So I've still been involved with SRO doing GT World Challenge this year with another customer team, and some other races as well. So yeah, still kept busy, but it's just nice to come back to British GT. Obviously last time we were together we won at Donington in 2015, and yeah, the car's changed. Obviously we've got the new Aston Martin Vantage now, and it's in its new retro livery this weekend. It looks great. It's a colour scheme that we raced in 2011 together with. So it's great. It's great fun. It doesn't feel like I've been away from the team. It's going well so far. The car's going really well around Brands Hatch. So we're here to have fun, but at the same time it'd be lovely to get a result this weekend.
Well, hopefully they will get a result. The car certainly looks quick. It's a circuit that suits the front-engined Aston Martin pretty well, and great to have Aston Martin back in the GT3 ranks. Of course, TF Sport were originally going to be fielding a couple of GT3 Astons. They aren't in GT3, but they are kind of dominating in GT4. The two fluorescent yellow Aston Martins you can see in the pit lane about halfway down are the top two in the GT4 Championship. They're also the top two on the grid for GT4, and they will be closely followed, as they are being in points, by HHC Motorsports McLaren. Patrick Matthiesen will start this car, then he'll then hand over to Jordan Collard, and that means that not for the first time this year, Jordan Collard will be sharing the track with his father, Rob, who is in the GT3 category, although actually Rob is starting the 78 car. So Jordan can sit and watch his dad racing in the first stint, and then Rob will get out, and I'm sure as much as he's interested to see how his car gets on, he'll have a keen eye towards how his son's getting on in GT4. Pit lane then is open. The Academy Motorsport Ford Mustang heads out of the pit lane, eager to get out onto the grid. Academy Motorsports Mustang 7th place in the championship coming into this race, but again doesn't really do them a whole lot of justice. They've been quick all season long, just a little bit accident prone at Alton Park, and a couple of wrong tyre choices were made at Donington Park. But this is a good Mustang circuit, you would imagine, although they've struggled a bit in qualifying again down on the 4th row of the grid. This car, though, will be lining up 3rd on the GT4 grid. The Speedworks Motorsport Toyota GR Supra GT4 that got their first podium of the season, and the first podium ever for this car, in fact, at Donington last time. They had a 3rd in race 1 and a 4th in race 2. It was a really consistent weekend, just what they need as they're trying to develop a brand new car. And to tell us more about that, we caught up with James Kell earlier in the weekend.
I've been working with Toyota and entered into the championship with the GT4 Supra. It's definitely come on leaps and bounds from where we started. I think through testing we didn't know what our balance of performance was going to be with it being such a new car, and waiting on that, and we were definitely getting comfortable with it, but then a balance of performance adjustment came in, so we got to sort of relearn how to get around some of those added weight penalties and suspension ride height penalties. So it's definitely been a lot of learning and a lot of implementing and changing and trying things and trying different lines, and does it like the curves, does it not? So it's been a lot of learning these past few rounds, but definitely starting to get there with the car, and it's becoming really competitive. We went in without having the car. The ambition was finish the first round, see where we lie, and just the general, projection to be going upwards. And then when we got the car and did a bit of testing, it was like, oh, this thing's really quick. So I think the expectations changed, and we started realising that we can be up there consistently. So the first round we just chipped away and got kept our feet on the ground and just made sure we were trying to do a good job, and then Donington improving, and hopefully Brands Hatch will improve again. That's the sort of progression we want to see for the team. The Astons and McLarens are definitely well regarded within the British GT paddock. They're very quick cars. They have their strengths and weaknesses, and I think with us being a new manufacturer and a new car, it's sort of maybe thrown them off kilter a little bit, like where are we strong and where are we weak. It's great sort of being the only car out there, because there's only one and they can only learn from us when they're out on track. So it's been great, and the Beamer's definitely getting quicker this weekend as well, so, and the Mustang's closing in, so it's all getting really, really tight, and it's really good fun and good racing, so I'm looking forward to tomorrow and qualifying.
Well, in the end, qualifying went rather well for Speedworks. 3rd quickest for Sam Smelt and James Kell. James, who we just heard from, will be taking over the 2nd stint, so it's Sam Smelt who will start with the 23 Toyota, which has made its debut in GT4 competition this year. There's been an example of it racing over in Europe as well, but in the British GT Championship, really important championship for them to do well in, especially since Speedworks are a pretty well-renowned team in British motorsport. Of course, they run the Toyota operation in the British Touring Car Championship these days, and they've taken on a pretty big project, not only running 2 cars in separate championships, but this brand new Toyota is a real work in progress, and they're developing it from the ground up and doing a really, really good job of it. As I say, they've had a podium already, and they've been, apart from a DNF they had at Alton Park, they've not yet been out of the top 5. This then, the car on pole position, James Baldwin and Michael O'Brien. James Baldwin, the world's fastest gamer, and he has made the transition from the sim world to real world racing, and he's made it remarkably well. He's been in 3 qualifying sessions, and he very nearly was on pole position after 2 of them. He set the fastest time of anyone in his session at Alton Park, only for the lap time to be disallowed for a very minor track limits transgression, and that ended up seeing him start 4th, but they still managed in the number 2 car to come through and win that opening race of the season. They were 6th in race 2, but then struggled a bit in the wet conditions in race at Donington Park a couple of weeks ago, and so the Number 2 McLaren has, thankfully, I'm sure they weren't doing a rain dance ahead of this particular round of the championship. They'll be glad that it's dry, the car working well around here. A very McLaren-heavy GT3 grid, but they are, as I said, not having it all their own way. We have 4 different makes of car in the top 4. We can see the car that's going to be starting second just pulling into line. And there, Andrew Howard, as the AM driver in this Pro-Am pairing for Beach Dean AMR, will be lining up 4th on the grid. So the Aston Martin, great to have it back in the championship, and we look forward to seeing how they're going to get on. Well, I'm delighted to say that once again I'm joined by Joe Osborne on commentary for this one. We've managed to drag him out of his McLaren 720S GT3 car that he raced superbly well at Donington Park a couple of weeks ago in challenging conditions, and Joe has joined me in the comms box ahead of what should, Joe, I think be another really entertaining race.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Yeah, it's nice to be back. Not sure where I'd rather be right now. When you're sat on the grid, the nerves are always high. But yeah, no, it's awesome to be able to talk about this race today with yourself. And yeah, I think we've got a spectacle here. I think when you look at the grid, it's a real mix of cars, but also the whole Pro-Am and Silver combo, which is normally a good sort of touch paper ready to ignite normally, I find.
Yeah, especially on such a tight, narrow circuit as this one. That second stint, I think, is going to be really, really interesting. We're quite likely to have some cars out of position looking to try and work their way back towards the front. It's not the easiest place to do that. Overtaking can be done here, but you sometimes have to get a bit inventive with where you try to make the move work. So the grid then lined up. We are more or less ready to, in fact, we can head down into the fray. Kelvin Fletcher is with one of the other new cars that's making its first appearance of the season. It is the Stella Motorsports Audi. Great addition to the grid, this Kelvin.
Hey, Senan. So you're making a comeback this year in the Audi R8. Last year you was in GT4.
Yeah.
I was actually racing against you in this same car, but in the GT4 version.
Yeah.
Now it's the GT3, the big brother. How's it feel to be back?
Yeah, it's great for the whole team to be back, really. Obviously, Stella Motorsport, we're 3 rounds into the championship, but we got the GT3 at the start of the year, and now we just kind of prove what the car can do. So this weekend is a bit of a last-minute entrance. We've not really had any testing prior, so we're kind of just having a big test program throughout the weekend, and we're just constantly learning, which is great so far.
I see what you're doing. You're getting your excuses in now.
Yep.
But I know what you're like, and I know Richard as well. You guys, albeit you're back here at the qualifying, you're going to be up thereabouts it for the tour race, I'm sure.
Yeah, like the improvements we've made, like just from free practice to qualifying, and then from qualifying to the warm-up has been like astronomical. So we're feeling really confident, even though we are back here, and hopefully we can gain quite a few places going up in the race.
All right, well, have a good day, mate. Enjoy it.
Thank you very much, mate.
Back to you guys.
Yeah, thanks, Kelvin. Great to have that car on the grid, Joe. And we always want more variety on the grid in British GT. And that first qualifying session of the year at Alton Park, which was dominated by the McLarens, they locked out the top 6 positions. That seems like a long time ago now, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's the nature of GT racing with the balance of performance. We talk about it so much, and I'll mention it throughout the race when you can see the strengths and weaknesses of cars. And yeah, you do find maybe at the start of the season the balance of performance is at its worst in terms of its parity, but now we see such a spread of cars. The powers that be, that I love obviously, if you can hear me, have got the BOP bang on, 4 different cars in the top 4 places. So yeah, we'll see that ebb and flow as we see Ian Loggie's Mercedes looking fast, stationary, where cars will be strong over the whole GP circuit here.
Yeah, and do you think that the circuit we're racing on has anything to do with this real variety we've got at the front of the field? Because you've got the tight and technical infield circuit that I kind of imagine would suit the mid-engine McLarens and Lamborghinis, but then you've got the high-speed stuff out the back, where the front-engine sort of Mercedes and Bentleys traditionally have gone well too. So is that why we've kind of got both examples of cars towards the front of the grid, do you think?
Yeah, definitely. We've got so many corners here, and they're all range from 1st to 5th gear, so that's a huge amount of variety among the GT3. And I think we've got Kelvin actually with a GT4 car, so maybe we can find out a bit more about how they're feeling around here, Kelvin.
Yes, well, you'll know yourself, Joe, how good these McLaren GT4s are. They were always in our mirrors last year, and quite often in front of us as well. They're a great car, and stood next to me is an amazing peddler. You seem really, really calm. Is this the norm for you on a race weekend?
Oh, I've been around the block a bit now, to be honest. Yeah, no, it's right, to be honest. Like I said, like what you said, the McLaren's a brilliant car. It's reliable, it's fast. we're not quite there this weekend, but I'm sure Patrick in the race will come through. He's a good set of hands to have behind the wheel. So, yeah, no, like I said, I'm calm in what Paddy can do, so I've got no reason to stress.
Now, Jordan, I've got to ask, obviously your dad's further up there in the GT3. I just imagine if I was on the race grid here and my dad was, straight away he wouldn't be up there, he'd be down there.
Yeah.
Does that play to your mind during the race? Obviously, you're professional, your eyes on the game, but is it quite exciting and then still a bit strange to know that you're actually on the same race circuit with your dad?
Yeah, it's all right, to be honest. Sometimes I think when he says no to an overtime request at work, I think I might tap him down into Druid sometimes, but no, apart from that, no, it's good. Obviously, he's in the GT3 car, so it's much quicker, and him and Sandy doing a mega job this year as well in the Lamborghini, so no, it's all right, to be honest. Again, he's been around the block more than me, so he's a good set of hands to have, and he's shown he's been really calm and composed this year, and he's not done anything silly, so he's all right as well, yeah.
It's great. I think it's a great dynamic, and I think it's so good for the sport that a father and son are sharing a grid, and you're both doing terrifically well, so good luck for this race.
Perfect.
And have a good one.
Thanks
Back
a lot.
to you
Cheers.
guys.
Yeah, the Collard family, clearly racing and being quick in a racing car runs in the blood, because not only Rob is a quick driver, but both of his sons, Ricky and Jordan, have made pretty successful careers for themselves. And again, they're all kind of finding that if you want a career as a racing driver, if you want to get paid to do this, GT racing is a pretty good place to aim, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And Jordan's one of our young drivers at McLaren, so I've got to spend time with him over the last few years, and he's seriously quick, and he's up in his game. You see Jordan Collard 3 years ago, he was twice the size as he is now, and in our fitness camp that we had at the start of the year as McLaren, he was one of our best performers. So it's good to see him getting there, and I'm sure he's got his sights on my GT3 drive, to be honest, and that's what we want. We want some inter-manufacturer rivalry, and that goes across the board at all levels. Aston Martin have the same with their academy, and now they've got Johnny Adam here this weekend. That will be where their sights are firmly set.
Yeah, great to see so much young up-and-coming talent as well in the British GT Championship. The future of GT racing is very, very healthy indeed. Right then, everyone, make yourselves comfortable, because we are about to get into 2 hours of intelligent money British GT racing action. The green flag lap is underway, and it is James Baldwin that leads the field away from pole position in the Jensen Team Rocket RJN McLaren, the car that won the season opener at Alton Park. Can they take their second victory and become the first double winner of the season? 4 races, 4 different winners so far in GT3 in 2020. But we do have one of our race winners up there at the front of the field. They're the only one, though, at the very sharp end of the grid who's won already this year. So car number 2 then on pole position with Rob Collard in the 78 Barwell Motorsport Lamborghini, alongside a pair of Silver Cup entrants sharing the front row of the grid for our 2-hour race here today. Ian Loggy is the top Pro-Am entrant in the Ram Racing Mercedes, with Andrew Howard alongside him, so an all-Am second row of the grid, Mercedes ahead of Aston Martin. Third row for the 2 Seas Motorsport McLarens, Jordan Witt in the 10 to start the race, Angus Fender driving car number 9 lines up alongside him. Then on the 4th row of the grid, Michael Igo in the 18 WPI Motorsport Lamborghini, and Sam Dahan second in the championship, only 8th on the grid though for Ram Racing. 5th row for Lewis Proctor's Optimum Motorsport McLaren, Adam Ballard, the championship leading Barwell car, deep in the field, only 10th on the grid at the start of this race, so Adam has some work to do against a lot of silver drivers at the start of the race. And then on row 6, Richard Neary and Richard Williams, 2 Richards together, 1 Mercedes and 1 Audi, 2 more different GT cars you couldn't hope to find, one with an Am driver at the wheel, and Richard Williams, the silver driver, in the number 30. Then it's Nick Jones in the Bentley ahead of birthday boy Conor O'Brien, turns 20 today, and he's on pole position in GT4 for TF Sport, the 95 car that sits second in the championship, only a point and a half behind the sister number 97 example. Well, it's 95 on pole with 97 of Dan Vaughan right behind, second on the grid. And then, as we covered earlier on, the Speedworks Motorsport Toyota, started by Sam Smelt, is third in GT4. Then on the next row, Patrick Mathiasen and Gus Bowers, the pair of HHC Motorsport McLaren. They reckon they're a bit off the pace today, but they should still be up there in the race, 58 ahead of 57. And then right behind them is going to be the pair of Century Motorsport BMWs, Andrew Gordon-Colebrook in the 42 this weekend, and Ben Hurst in 43. There's been a bit of a driver swap there in Century, just to confuse us. And then towards the back of the GT4 field, Jordan Albert in the Academy Mustang, Mia Fluitt in the only Pro-Am GT4 entry from Balf Motorsport, and she will be at the back of the field. Here we go then. Round number 5 of the Intelligent Money British GT Championship. 4 different makes of car sharing the front 2 rows of the grid, and a very tight qualifying session yesterday sets us up for a 2-hour thriller on the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. James Baldwin and Rob Collard make up the front row of the grid as we go, hopefully, racing. Away they go, up towards Paddock Hill then. Good start made by Collard on the outside line. The 2-2C Motorsport McLarens almost make contact. Into the right hand they go. It's a very congested start. Thankfully, I think they all get into the corner in one piece and they all come out of it in one piece too, which I was not convinced was going to be the case. Into Druids now. They really pinch down towards the apex here. Baldwin getting away out in front. It looks like Andrew Howard is struggling though amongst some of the Silver Cup entrants around him that in theory should be a bit quicker. The 2C's Motorsport McLarens running in tandem right behind him as they come out of Graham Hill for the first time. Grid order then for the top 4. Number 9 is ahead of number 10 though, so that's the first change is for 5th position. That's Angus Fender ahead of Jordan Witt. 2 teammates swapping positions. Well, Joe, how we didn't just have about 2 or 3 fairly sizable collisions, I do not know. That was very, very tight into the first corner, but you've got to make progress early because it can be hard to gain track position later.
Yeah, you've got to strike while the iron's hot, while everyone's bunched up. You can obviously make more positions for less meterage, so that's positive. It was a messy start, I thought, that the guys on the left-hand side in the car weren't particularly on their side of the track, so I think the race director Peter Daly tried to hold them as long as they could, and that's why it was such a late and slow start. There was definitely a lot of side-to-side contact. You could see that 96 Optimum car side by side with that Neri Mercedes. So, yeah, as you said, Fender's the one who's made the progress so far. Looks like he's down now the inside of Andrew Howard as well. So that's silver on Am. That's not unexpected. But now this is awkward for Howard because will Witt be able to follow his teammate through as the doors left open? So that's 2 spaces lost in 0 corners, only a straight. So Andrew now needs to get his eyes forward and make sure that he can stay ahead and make sure that that car is in a decent position for his teammate Johnny Adam to take over.
Yeah, absolutely. In a way, though, the car behind him now, which is another Pro-Am entry, that's Michael Igoe in the 18 WPR Motorsport car. That car should be running at a similar pace to Andrew, so that was sensible, I think, to let the 2 Silver Cup McLarens go. And now the next car behind him shouldn't have such a pace advantage, but Igoe is having a go at the inside into Surtees. Couldn't quite make that one stick, and Andrew Howard holds on to the position. He is now down, as Joe was saying, into 6th place. So James Baldwin leads the way by a second over Rob Collard in 2nd. Ian Logie for Ram Racing is 3rd. Andrew Howard is no longer 4th. It's now Angus Fender, who's gained 2 positions in the opening lap and a bit. It's all stacking up here, though, for 6th place on back. You've got Andrew Howard ahead of Michael Igoe, ahead of Sam Dahan, ahead of Lewis Proctor, Richard Neary, Adam Ballan's in here as well. Some heavy hitters in the championship in this battle as well. Remember, the top 2 in the championship, 72, Adam Ballan is 11th, and Sam Dahan, 69, is 8th. They've got to be especially careful in the early stages. Yeah, most definitely, and I think Andrew Howard's done a great job here, actually, to get his head back down. It's so easy when you're on the back foot just to get caught napping and suddenly get your driving to become a bit flaky, but he's definitely got going, and now you actually say it looks like Igoe's maybe under pressure from Dahan, who's then under pressure from Proctor, who's then under pressure from Neary. So there's definitely a bit of a cork in the bottle in this mid-pack, and we just probably need another lap or 2 to see where people sit pace-wise. But Igoe definitely doesn't look like he lacks confidence or willingness to put pressure on Howard. Right on board then with the number 18 WPI Motorsport that has its 3rd different Lamborghini Squadra Corsa professional driver driving that car in as many events, because Frank Pereira, you can see his name underneath Michael Igoe's on the dash. He will be jumping in for the 2nd stint a bit later on. You can even add Richard Williams into this group, look, as Igoe gets a good exit from Surtees' corner, but that Aston Martin has some poke in a straight line, and Andrew Howard should just get across to the left-hand side of the road. That's the correct racing line into Hawthorne, and he's far enough ahead then into the corner that Igoe cannot quite fight back. So Howard hangs on to 6th position. I noticed up the road as well that the 2C's Motorsport McLarens have already reeled in Ian Logie, who is 3rd place overall, but again, the leading Pro-Am entrant. You can't overtake here. Michael has a look to the inside into Sheen Curve, but look, he had a look to the inside there, Joe, and then ends up losing ground on the apex. Maybe he was defending from the car behind, but that did seem a strange line to take. Yeah, definitely looked frustrated as we cut to that battle you alluded to. The 2C2 cars now on the back of Logie. I think Logie is probably a little bit more stubborn, would be the positive adjective
perspective I'd use on Ian, that he will not do an Andrew Howard and let them go. So he will want to hold these guys up, I think, for a little bit longer to impede later on when he swaps over to his rapid flying Dutchman, Jelmer Berman. But yeah, going back to that Igo one, it's so tempting as a racing driver to always try and overtake. But unfortunately, there's just some corners where it's physically not possible and you end up losing more time. So you need a little bit of composure, and you just need to set yourself, work out where the car in front is at its weakest, and then line up your attack there and try and do it in one fell swoop, rather than lots of little jabs. Normally doesn't sort of knock the opponent out.
Don't forget the number 10 McLaren, which is the second of the two blue and black machines, has a 10-second success penalty. They were third in race 2 at Donington last time, so they take extra time into their pit stops. Of course, the Bentley that won of Nick Jones and Scott Malvern has 20 seconds to add on. Adam Ballard and Phil Keane were second, so not only is that car deep in the field, but they have a 15-second success penalty to serve at around about the halfway mark. For now, though, we focus very much on the racing on track. The McLaren is so good through the high-speed right-hander at Sheen Curve, but then that put him on the wrong side of the road into Surtees. He's almost in the boot of the Mercedes as it comes out of Sterling's corner, but then that low-down torque of the Mercedes allows Loggy to stay in front. He's clearly not as quick as the McLarens. I understand what you're saying. He's not going to just pull over and let them go, but at some point, does this fight maybe get to the point where it's not worth having? Yeah, definitely in terms of a lap time performance, but also the risk of contact goes up exponentially. So the longer that Fender's behind, he's under pressure from Witt, essentially, to get this move done. So he might start to get a little desperate with his moves, which then in turn may affect Loggy if there's a bit of contact there. So yeah, let's see how it goes. It looks hard at the moment for Fender because he's so close. He actually can't get a run out of these corners. That, aided by the fact that you're talking about the low-end grunt of the Mercedes, makes this difficult. For me, he's got to save up his one attack and do it into turn 2, draw it to the hairpin at the start of the lap. That's how I think the easiest chance. As you see Igo going around the outside of Howard, this will take a lot of minerals to complete it. It actually looks like he's getting pushed through there by Dehan, and Howard's lost 3 places in one straight there. So great work by Igo to get the exit speed onto that back straight to complete the move. And now it'll be interesting to see where this goes. And unfortunately, Andrew's lost a place here to Neary and maybe to Ballon and then also Williams. So yeah, I don't think that will make Andrew Howard's highlight reel at the end of the year, unfortunately. He really needs to get his head down now and just eat some time back out of this stint. So Igo then gets himself into 6th and everyone else goes with him. 12 months ago, of course, it was Johnny Cocker in that position on the last lap of the race. Lost a place to Phil Keane into Hawthorne and lost another 3 or 4 between then and the checkered flag. Once you're offline out on the Grand Prix loop, it's very hard to find your way back into the queue. So James Baldwin leads now by 3.6 seconds over Rob Collard in second. They're 6.3 ahead of the Loggy Fender Witt battle, which is still in that order. And then this man, Michael Igo, is up into 6th. Dehan 7th, Proctor 8th, Neary 9th, Ballon into 10th, Richard Williams 11th. So that was 6 places lost from Andrew Howard. And critically, amongst the cars that went past him, 2 of them were also Pro-Am entrants. So if they're looking at a class victory, their chances have just got a little bit less maybe within the first 10 minutes or so of the race. Bit of a mistake there for Angus Fender coming out of Surtees. Now he's dropped back from Loggy here. Intentional, do you think? I'd say not, because he dropped a little bit on the exit there, but the interesting thing now will be to see how quickly he gains that time back up to him as we cut back to the GT4 second place battle, and then that BMW looks like it's holding up the 3 cars behind it. So we'll see this across the class. It's not exclusive to GT3. You do get some cars that are better on the straights, and I think that BMW is stronger than the McLaren on the straight, so then it's hard to overtake. So it's going to be difficult all the way through this pack for people to overtake, and as I said earlier, the frustration element sometimes gets the better of a driver, and that can lead to some issues. Interestingly, on that Igo onboard that we were on half a lap ago, there was damage to the rear diffuser. Not a lot, nothing flapping, but it was definitely cut. And I generally do think Dehan might have been giving him a bit of a bump draft to help get past Howard. It's something we see in NASCAR predominantly, but yeah, if you're willing to spend £8,000 on a bumper, then yeah, it might be worth it for a place. They were definitely making contact. That was brilliant stuff there. Sam Dehan was not hanging around because he had a run on the pair of them as they'd run side by side through the previous corner. Good start to the race this for Andrew Gordon-Colville. That 42 BMW started behind both of the HHC McLarens, that it is now holding up, no doubt, but it has gained the track position on them. It's rather allowed the top 3 to pull away, though. It's still Conor O'Brien from down board, but Sam Smelt's going with them, and that Toyota might be the only car quick enough to beat the Aston Martins in GT4 here this weekend. Remember that neither of the Astons have a success penalty, nor does the Toyota. So the top three in GT4 will not have a success penalty to serve the pit stops. However, both HHC cars, as well as the Balfour McLaren, will. Academy Mustang up the inside here. This is an attempted pass by Jordan Albert to get himself ahead of Patrick Mathiasen in the 58 car. Couldn't quite do it. 58 actually started ahead of 57 as well. So the big loser here, Joe, was Mathiasen. So Jordan Collard, we spoke to him just before the race, and he was confident that Patrick would be able to make forward progress. In fact, he's gone the other way.
Yeah, definitely. It's hard. He's really in the middle of that four-car battle. As sure enough, we see fender on the fender of Loggy here. And it's just so close. You can just see he can't get on the throttle as early as he wants because he'll drive into the back of Loggy. So we stay on board here. This is turn number 1, Paddock Hill. Relatively short break, high speed. And then we're coming to the big overtaking spot of the lap. Fender doesn't quite have the legs on Loggy, and Loggy's already kind of looking semi-defensive there. But for me, that is going to be the overtake that he needs to save himself up for at some point in this first stint.
If you're the 2Cs Motorsport team manager, are you on the radio here to Jordan Witt saying, look, just leave your teammate alone for a minute, because if Jordan doesn't attack Angus, Angus is free to take whatever line he wants to try and get past Ian Loggy. At the moment, though, you can see he's kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, isn't he? He wants to attack the Mercedes, but every time he goes offline, his teammate looks to the inside.
Yeah, definitely. If I was Fender, I would be asking, can I just have 2 laps where I know that Jordan won't overtake me, so I can concentrate on my efforts, and in return I'll make sure that I do a robust move enough on Loggy to keep the door open for him. And then later in the race, if they're the wrong way round pace-wise, then look to switch. But potentially down the inside, but this it's just so narrow there on the grass, maybe contact. I've got my eyes closed. I don't really want to watch this at the moment, as we then also see Witt on the offensive, a little bump there, but now he's on the outside. And to be honest, a little bump like that is only going to wind Loggy up and make him even more stubborn.
Yeah, if he wasn't letting him through before, he definitely won't now. And there you go, look at the inside goes the 10 car, tried to get the place away. That was Jordan Witt trying a little cheeky move up the inside of his teammate Angus Fender. It didn't quite work. Pulls to the outside. Jordan Witt might feel that maybe now Angus has had a few laps to get through. Maybe he wants a turn in 4th position, because so far everything that Angus Fender is throwing at Ian Loggy has an answer for. But you can feel the frustration here, can't you, now, from Angus Fender? That little bit of a love tap he gave him, not only into Sterling's, but I think they actually made contact into the preceding corner at Sheen Curve as well. The McLaren wants to come through, and it might not be too long before he really tries a bit of a late lunge up the inside. He's dropped back again, though, into Surtees, and again, back to the point we were making, he's also conscious of the fact that his teammate is right up behind him, and adding to the frustration for 2Cs Motorsport, they're now 15 seconds off the lead. 15 seconds in 8 laps, Joe. That's amazing.
Yeah, and the last lap was 2.5 seconds slower than Colin and Baldwin in first and second, respectively. So this is bleeding time. He's really got to just to wait and do one big attack. Just give him a couple of lengths here, because you can back up and Jordan will be able to overtake you and just save it up. And actually, I think we're seeing Igo now starting to reel in this battle. So in a little while, they're going to have to be looking behind as much as they're looking forward, which is the hardest thing to do in racing.
Remember, I said at the start of the race, you get these pressure cooker situations where the car at the front of the queue isn't as quick as the cars behind. The cars behind can't find a way past because it's just so hard to get alongside here. And eventually something has to give. And I think the drivers could maybe do well to remember we still have over an hour and 3/4 left in this 5th round of the Intelligent Money British GT Championship. Out of Surtees goes Jordan Albert here in the number 61 Academy Motorsport Mustang. Tries to close in on the HHC McLaren, which is getting away from him in a straight line. He has, though, I think, split them, has he not? Yes, he has. He's got himself ahead of Gus Bauer. So Albert making good progress here, despite the fact, surprisingly, to me at least, he wasn't as quick as the McLaren in a straight line. Yeah,
definitely. And actually that 57 McLaren we see lose a few places of Gus Bauer's has also got a track limits warning. So this is something that we're going to have to start picking up on. So the rule in British Motorsport, if you're not aware, is you can't have a wheel over the white line or over the red and white curve. So if it's green, like they were doing there, that's illegal. Not dumping them in, but the race director will see that. He's got at his aid at turns 1, 2 and 3 a track sensor. So there's a pressure pad that when the car goes over it, it trips it, takes a picture and sends it to him in race control so he can start to dish out those penalties. You've got 4 lives basically until it becomes a big issue of a drive-through or a time penalty.
Yeah, absolutely, and that definitely will become a factor, I think, later on in the race. Now, James Baldwin then, his lead gap over Rob Collard is growing. They're also into some of the traffic now. Mia Fluid there going a lap down in the GT4 Pro-Am at McLaren. 7 seconds the lead for Baldwin in his first full season of car racing against Rob Collard, who's been doing this for about 300 years, it feels. Third place is Ian Logie, and then side by side is that for 4th, and Jordan Witt is now ahead of Angus Fender. So Jordan Witt then gets himself into 4th. Now, we didn't quite see the start of that, Joe. That might have been an orchestrated move there, and the team saying, right, Angus, you've had your chance, now give Jordan a go. Or it might have been another of those situations where Angus had a go at Logie and ended up leaving the door open for his teammate. Yeah,
definitely. I think if it was orchestrated, it's probably quite a smart move by the 2Cs guy, because to be fair, Fender's had a good 10 minutes of going and not got anywhere, so let's roll the dice and see if Jordan's got a different idea. And they basically haven't lost anything time-wise. It's just position for that for the Fender car. But yeah, you're talking about James Baldwin. I mean, the guy is unbelievable. This is his first year car racing. Obviously super competitive on a simulator, but when I go to a simulator, I'm not super competitive. So for him to be able to do it both ways is so impressive. And yeah, he's definitely got the world's fastest gamer tag and correct mannerisms. He made a good point. We spoke to him at Donington a couple of weeks ago, and he made a very good point that, OK, he's not the first person to have made this transition from sim racing to real racing, but most people that do that, they have a bit of a step in between sim racing and GT3 racing, in that they tend to go and do GT4 or some other kind of club stuff beforehand. He has gone straight into a GT3 machine, and immediately he's one of the fastest silver drivers in the championship. He's having to contend with traffic now, though, as he dives up the inside. But that's a good point that he made, I thought, Jack. Yeah, definitely. You can't overemphasise how fast these cars are. 550 horsepower, which might not sound the most, but with slick tyres and the amount of downforce they've got, they're seriously quick cars these days, and it's not easy just to jump in and be quick. And I don't want to curse him, and I'm touching wood. He doesn't make big mistakes. He might make a little one here and there, but he just seems so rounded already. Yeah, I can't give him enough superlatives, I'm afraid. He's doing a really good job and fully deserves the praises that he is getting. Jordan Albert has now gained another place by the looks of it then, because that's now a BMW ahead of us. And Jordan Albert, I think, has got past Patrick Mathiasen on the start of this lap, so that now puts the Academy Mustang up one more place into 5th place in GT4. As the 3rd place GT3 battle continues, the Pro-Am leader Ian Logie just ahead of Jordan Witt and Angus Fender, these 2 Silver Cup 2Cs Motorsports McLarens, and they're in traffic. Now, does this present an opportunity, another opportunity for Witt to attack? It could sometimes, of course, present an opportunity for Logie to get away. Yeah, definitely, and I felt for Mia Fluid there. She was really only left that option. That was a little bit naughty of the GT3s. As we see Jordan down the inside, Loggie's given him a space, but Loggie's driving so well defensively. He gave him half a car width. There you go, mate, what are you going to do? Because the next corner's a right-hander. So even if he carried the move on, he was on the outside. So super impressed by Logie here in terms of how defensive he is. But he is losing a lot of times that top 2 now, as we alluded to earlier. Yeah, but you're absolutely right. I mean, he's not as quick as the cars behind him, but that's not the full story, really. The job of the AM is to keep the car in contention so that when the Pro jumps in later, they should be quicker than the Silver Cup drivers, and maybe Yelma Berman can close back in on the leaders, although they are already nearly 22 seconds behind. Right, as that wasn't the only close battle going on out there. This one is also pretty entertaining. Michael Igo 6th, Sam Zahan 7th, and Lewis Proctor in 8th. Sam Zahan has gained 1 position from where he started, but that 69 car really could do with capitalising more here, I think, on the 72 car, not really appearing to be on the pace this weekend. 72 holds an 11-point lead over that black and pink Mercedes number 69 in the championship. But of course the 78 car that is up there in 2nd place in the race overall is only a few points behind them. So Zahan could do with getting a wriggle on here. At the same time, though, I'm quite impressed at his patience here, given the pressure he must be under. Yeah, definitely. I think we're seeing a calculated championship race already from Zahan. There's been a few moves I've seen out the commentary box where he's looking very racy, but just has it in reserve that if Igo turns in on him, he can get out of it and not make contacts. And you can kind of see. So I'm trying to see, you can see this damage on the right-hand side, the diffuser, so it's carbon fibre material. You can just see it's frayed on its top edge. Just trying to see if there's any damage on the front of that Mercedes. It's such a big grille, it's quite hard to pick up any damage. But Yeah, I wouldn't have said that's performance reducing at the moment. If it starts getting a big flap on, then it'll become a bit of an issue, as we see a paper width in between the Mercedes and of width there, and it still looks frustrated attacking to me. It doesn't look particularly calculated with one big move, and this is something that kids I instruct from a young age get bored of me saying, but stop having lots of little looks and just save up for one big one, because the guy in front, Loggy in this case, doesn't really know what you're doing. So he's just looking in his mirror going, well, you're kind of everywhere, so I'm going to turn in and do what I want anyway, because you're doing it every lap and you've bored me now. You kind of come a bit numb to the attacks from behind.
They're also being caught, you're absolutely right, by Igo, Dahan and Proctor, and Richard Neary's not far behind them either, so what is at the moment a three-way fight for third could very easily, in the next 5 minutes or so, become a 7 or 8 car battle, and there's traffic here. Now this is not good for Loggy. The 43 BMW of Ben Hurst is in the way, he couldn't get out of the way quick enough, that was the problem. But then when they do pull alongside, there is no room for Jordan Wick to slip up the inside of the Mercedes. He rattles over the curbs. That McLaren is being punished. In the extreme, goes on the inside, and this time it's a decisive lunge to the side-to-side contact. Off goes Ian Loggy. There you go, that's what you get for defending that hard from us for 20 minutes. You get shoved onto the grass, and both the McLarens go through. Well, he kind of tried that a lap or so earlier, didn't he? He had that half look of the inside that you commented on. That time it was a committed lunge, he was fully alongside, but there was some contact.
Yeah, I think it was harsh but fair on that one view I got of it. He was down the inside fairly, Loggy gave him the space, and then as we see a GT4 battle, we'll see if that Mustang can get the traction, and then that will give him the inside. Looks like he's going to get that done, to be fair. That's a great move from Jordan Albert, and he's on the march as well now, so he's going to get a bit of clear air as well. So let's see what pace that Mustang has. This might be a bit of a dark horse, excuse the pun, for the rest of the race. That Mustang is on song. Yeah, I think we need to see an external view of that. I think basically Jordan was down the inside, he was in front, and then technically the corner is his, so he got off the steering lock and just forced Loggy wide, which then helped Fender through. So harsh but fair. It looks dirty, but I think I would have done exactly the same.
Well, now, just to compound this situation even more, they're in amongst that GT4 traffic. Here it is from the outside. I mean, he's fully alongside, and then there's more contact on the exit. That's the bit that Loggy might be a bit more frustrated about, but there was a gap. He came from a little way back, but no, I tend to agree with you. I think having sat sort of patiently behind the Mercedes for so long, eventually something had to give, as I suggested, and through went the McLaren, as you also said, Joe. Through goes the Ford Mustang now of Jordan Albert up into 4th place. This has been a brilliant stint, this, from 8th on the grid in GT4, at a track where supposedly you can't overtake, although some drivers are now starting to set themselves up for some moves, because Ian Loggy has been caught now by Mike Ligo. These are the top 2 AM drivers in the field, and then you've got Loggy's teammate, championship contender Sam Dahan, behind as well in the 69 car. They have been caught by Richard Neary too. 5 cars, 3 different makes of GT3 car here as well. We've got a couple of Mercedes, a McLaren, a Lamborghini as well. 4 different makes, excuse me, and they are all absolutely nose to tail, darting their way through the traffic. And this is a real factor here. The narrower the circuit, the more important it is that you deal with the traffic effectively. It's just so easy to get stuck behind a GT4 car and lose seconds at a time.
Yeah, definitely, and it's difficult around here. I would say at the moment the GT3s are looking a bit dive bombing on the GT4s. So by that I mean they're basically shoving the car down the inside into the corner and expecting the GT4 to yield and give them the space. And that's not really how it works. The GT4 is having its own race, it can stick to its own line. I do feel like someone's going to come a cropper of it, as we were just seeing more and more GT3 on GT4. For guys at home, just so you quickly tell the difference, GT4 have these yellow headlights and a different colour windscreen banner, so they've got the black ones, and the GT3 are the white, so as you're trying to guess who's who, it's the quickest indication of the class difference.
Yeah, good point actually, yes, because the GT4 battle, we'll see a lot of them as the GT3s come charging through, and their battle is just as important to them, certainly, and the 95 Aston Martin, Conor O'Brien, is still leading. However, it's now Sam Smelt in seconds to the Toyota. We missed it because we've been focusing quite rightly on this titanic battling going on in GT3, but the Toyota of Sam Smelt is into 2nd place now, not at the moment lapping as quickly as the class leader, but running strongly in 2nd. 3rd in GT4 is Dan Vaughan in the 97 championship leading TF Sport Aston Martin, and Jordan Albert in the Mustang up into 4th place. Incident involving car 6 Ian Loggy and car 10 Jordan Witt is under investigation. Not a massive surprise, I suppose, that Ram Racing would like the Clark and Course Peter Daly to have another look at that, but whether or not they come to the same conclusion that Joe Osborne did, we'll await and see. It looked, though, like, and I know I must sound like such a defeatist here, but I really do think that was the right thing for Loggy to do, was just to let them go, because look, he's now pulling back away from Michael Igoe, so he's quick enough to keep everyone else behind him, and he's not getting driven into every other corner by McLaren trying to get through, so his heart rate will be down, he's not using the car up as much, and his lap times have immediately become quicker.
Yeah, definitely. I think in hindsight, you're bang on there. It's just how much time he lost defending. I think was maybe a 2 or 3 laps too many, in my opinion, because his pace is strong, as you've said. So would it have been better to do more of an Andrew Howard dealing with traffic method of lifting down a straight and then just tucking behind? Probably, but hindsight, when you sat up in the commentary box, it does feel a lot easier than when I was sat in the race car last round, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. When you get a sniff of a battle, you don't want to back out of it. And Joe, we thoroughly enjoyed watching you a couple of weeks ago as well. I didn't have the chance to congratulate you on a really, really strong result for Balfe Motorsport on their return to GT3 competition, and the battle you had with Scott Mulford at the start of the race was very entertaining indeed. So too is this scrap here between the 42 BMW of Andrew Gordon-Colebrook and the 58 McLaren from HHC of Patrick Mathiasen. Mathiasen not quite able to go through into 5th place in GT4 that time, as we hear now no further action between Loggy and Witt. So Peter Daly, not for the first time, I must stress, agrees with you, Joe.
Yeah, I'm always surprised though. I'm never right with a race director, so yeah, he had to take action, he had to have a look at it and then go on his facts, and everything's got in front of him. And it's great to see no further action that quickly as well. For both parties, you just get a bit of sort of clearance and final, and you can just move on with the rest of your race. And then we're just telling Loggy, look, your pace is good compared to the rest of the AM, so you just now need to smash out this last half of your stint as quickly as you can. This will be a brave move, by the way, all the way around the outside. Mathiasen thinks better of it and might be able to get a cut back down the inside. Not quite got the run on him there. As we go on board with Mathiasen, you can see all this data going on. The road dash in front of him is actually fully standard road car. That's how it runs on a 570 road car and track. He's got the blue screen there. That will become his pit lane timer, so he knows how long he needs to be in the pits. Got the centre dash, which actually is aircon, which is nice. And then the right-hand side is what we call our Motec dash. It's a bit more in-depth data. It's got his gears, his revs, oil temperature, engine temperature. Good launch. Leave it there. Go, full power. And he's now got the inside all the way through the exit of Clearways, the longest corner in the world, onto the pit straight, which isn't very straight. And now he's got the inside into Paddock Hill. So this should be a matter, of course, of just braking at the same point as the BMW, holding them out to dry, and then driving out of the corner one place higher than where he started the last lap.
It's almost like you've done this before, Joe. That was a brilliant move there, and again he set it up through Clearways, brought himself the inside line into Paddock Hill Bend, and so Patrick Mathiasen moves ahead of Andrew Gordon-Colebrook now and into 5th place in GT4. They make their way out of Graham Hill Bend. You've got the Team Parker Racing Bentley that 2 weeks ago was on the top step of the podium at Donington Park. They've struggled a little here this weekend, it must be said, as Michael Igoe is now behind Sam Dahan. So Sam Dahan has got the Ram Racing number 69 Mercedes into 6th position now. Igoe down to 7th. And Sam Dahan, now he's released into clean air. It'll be really interesting to see his pace. Remember that the 69 Mercedes, although it's the teammate car to the number 6 just in front of it, that is a Silver Cup car, whereas the 6 is a Pro-Am entry. So in theory, Dahan should be quicker than Loggy here. And when he catches him, you would imagine Ian won't be quite as defensive with his teammate as he was with those pesky McLarens a few laps ago.
Yeah, definitely there'll be a little bit of team orders if it's needed. And be interesting to see if Lewis Proctor, looking like Jason Statham in his picture, will be able to get past Igoe. He kind of needs to make it happen if they're going to be able to get a silver result. So yeah, it looks like Igoe is a bit held up by Conor O'Brien, birthday boy, in the lead of GT4, and then just, to be fair, it was a great move by Dahan, just placing the car on the inside of Druids and not giving Igoe the opportunity to turn in.
Yeah, it looked almost like Igoe, he knew he'd been held up, so he braked a bit later than normal into Druids to try and make up for it, but the reason you have a specific braking point into any given corner is that if you brake any later, you won't make the corner. So he ran a bit wide and through went Dahan. So Dahan then into 6th. Now, I keep mentioning this interesting championship situation, and Sam Dahan at the moment is set to outscore the Barwell 72 car, but of course they're all being outscored pretty much by Rob Collard and Sandy Mitchell's number 78 car, which is still in second place. James Baldwin, I remind you, leads the way. He is now, I think I caught a glimpse of this lap ago. I was going to wait for the tyre screen to confirm what I think I saw, because I reckon that gap is up to nearly, it's over 20 seconds now between Baldwin and Collard at the front of the field. Witt third, Fender fourth, fifth for Loggy, sixth to Han, and then this the fight for seventh. Michael Igoe, Lewis Proctor and Richard Neary. Now Lewis Proctor has just seen Sam Dahan get ahead of Michael Igoe. He knows it can be done, but the McLaren will have different strengths and weaknesses compared to not only the Lamborghini in front of it, but also the Mercedes that just made that move. Now, the McLaren and the Lamborghini, from a layman's perspective, quite similar. They look very similar, they're similar shapes, they're both mid-engine. So does that make it harder maybe for Wilkinson to find an advantage and find a way through?
Yeah, definitely, because you're both very similar in the nature of the corners. The cars are a little bit different, driving both the Lamborghini about 3 years ago and the McLaren currently. I'd say the Lamborghini's probably a little bit stronger on torque out of the corner with the power it's allowed, and then the McLaren's a bit stronger on the brakes. So those two kind of neutralise each other on every straight and every corner. So then it is going to be down to Lewis to kind of wind one up and see if he can prod Igoe. And it also depends what Igoe's sort of appetite is to defend against the silver. It's not the direct battle per se by the time the checkered flag falls. But Baldwin again, unbelievable, 20 seconds, got to be one of the biggest opening gaps we've ever seen in 30 minutes of British GT. And just watching him out the window, he's so good with traffic, he makes it so clear. So the world's fastest gamer managed to get around Mia Fluid, the world's fastest granny, without losing any time whatsoever, all because he just got a mega exit out of turn 3 and just got the car going. And I did check with Mia before I could call her the world's fastest granny. I'm not that brave, and I was also given the line by Patrick Gosling, so thank you for that one.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to get on Mia Fluid's bad side, that's for sure. And she's done a pretty good job this year, it must be said, as the only AM in a field of Silver Cup entrants in GT4, and to have won a race and be fifth in the championship, only 12 points off the points is pretty impressive. But this gap couldn't really be much closer. Across the start-finish line, there was just over a tenth and a half separating Michael Igoe and Lewis Proctor. Lewis Proctor in the 96 Optimum Motorsport McLaren, trying to find a way through. Neither of these two cars will have to serve a success penalty at the pit stops, which are only about half an hour away. We are already just over a quarter of the way into this fifth round of the Intelligent Money British GT Championship. James Baldwin leads for the Jensen Team Rocket RJN McLaren squad. Rob Collard second for Barwell Motorsport. Third place Jordan Witt for 2C's Motorsport, with his teammate Angus Fender in fourth. Fifth place for Ian Loggy, Ram Racing, and his teammate Sam Dahan is now on his tail, so that might well be a change in the offing for fifth place before too much longer. And then this is the fight for seventh. Michael Igoe's Lamborghini, Lewis Proctor's McLaren, and Richard Neary's Mercedes. Richard's had a relatively quiet stint, it must be said, but I'm looking forward to seeing how Sam Neary gets on in that second stint, because Sam has been one of the revelations this year, hasn't he, Joe?
Yeah, definitely. Super young and relatively inexperienced in GT3, but he's been absolutely mega, and it's been great for him having Yelmer Berman to go against a proper factory driver from Mercedes AMG. And interestingly, that little Neary family-run team are running the old spec Mercedes, so if we do catch a glimpse of the front end, it's the easiest. It doesn't quite have such a ostentatious front grille in design, so it's not even the latest spec car, which makes it even more spectacular, as we see Proctor getting super close into paddock, again just then not being able to get the run on Igoe into, for me, the best overtaking spot of the lap. And unfortunately Lewis was a lot more decisive on overtaking his dad, my teammate, the last round, and that knocked us off the podium. So we could, if Lewis can replicate that sort of aggressive overtaking nature on Igoe.
Yeah, Igoe was defending the inside there into paddock, and so you'd have thought maybe Proctor could take the wide line in, carry the speed up the hill into Druids, but instead tried to outfox him and get to the inside. It didn't work, most of them stay in the same order. And we catch a glimpse in the background there as well of Richard Williams in the number 30 Audi, making its return to the championship. Good to have Audi back on the grid. First time, I believe, since 2016 that we've had an Audi on the GT3 grid. Of course, Stella Motorsport ran the Audi in GT4 last season. He's not quite on the pace of these three, but the more they keep holding each other up, the closer he might get to them over the remaining 20 minutes or so of his stint. So through Sterling's they go, then Baldwin and Collard. That gap stabilised now at about 20 seconds at the front of the field. So Baldwin is maybe happy now that he's got a 20-second cushion. He's decided to save the car, save the tyres a little bit. Across the start-finish line comes this little battle again, and the McLaren with its headlights on, straight line speed, there's nothing really to choose between them, but we reckon the McLaren's better on the brakes. This time he does take the wide line into paddock, just trying to set himself up for the inside into Druids.
Yeah, maybe it's not possible to get the undercut enough out of paddock into Druids. Maybe I'm hoping too much of cars to be able to get a run into Druids, so maybe we need to have another look at where the next best overtaking spot is, and it's probably somewhere to go out the back out of the next corner, Surtees onto the back straight into Hawthorns, although it's not a big break at Hawthorns. If you could get the run, like we saw Igo do on Howard at the start of the race.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like I say, sometimes you have to surprise the driver you're trying to overtake, because there are one or two traditional overtaking opportunities here, but because they're the traditional overtaking opportunities, people know to defend into them. So Paddock, Druids, Surtees, they're all places where we regularly see attempted overtakes. Sometimes you have to try and throw one up the inside into Sterling's, for example, as we saw Jordan Wick do against Ian Loggy a little bit earlier on. Of course, Optimum Motorsports, Ollie Wilkinson here, not only hoping for outright honours, but also was hoping, I think, to be one of the leading Silver Cup entrants this year. But they've had a bit of a tricky year. They've had a couple of class podiums within the Silver Cup, but Optimum, maybe this switch to the McLaren, they've just struggled with it a bit more than they thought they would. Remember, last year they had the front-engine Aston Martin. Now they are part of the McLaren fold, and there is Richard Williams keeping in touch with this one. I'm still not counting the Audi out for a top 6 or 7 finish here with Senna in the car for the second stint. I reckon they could get somewhere a bit closer to the front.
Yeah, definitely. Senna's a massive talent, and he's quick in that car, as he's shown already. And yeah, I think Richard's doing the job that probably expected of him. Limited running in the car, hanging on the back of some good AMs in front of him. And I think Richard's maybe a little bit unlucky to be a silver graded driver sometimes. He's got a proper job, so he's an amateur in that regard. So yeah, although we have him down as a silver, I actually think he's just a very, very good bronze.
Well, he's catching this group of cars now, isn't he? On the previous lap, Richard Williams did a 28.4, which was some 0.6 of a second quicker than Richard Neary in front. So he's arriving with pace, and the arrival of a fourth car into this group changes the dynamic again, doesn't it? Because at the moment, Richard Neary isn't having to worry really about anything. He's kind of quite content to follow in the wheel tracks of the two cars in front. He's not having to defend from the car behind, but if that Audi does arrive on his tail, he might well have a hard time keeping it behind. Right, GT4 action now, and this is the overall race leader, James Walden, putting a lap on the second placed GT4 Toyota. So Sam Spelt doing a good job here in the Toyota. His previous lap was about 3/10 slower than the race leader Conor O'Brien, but the gap between them is only 2 3/4 seconds. But I made the point that none of those top 3 in GT4 have a success penalty, so this race should continue to be a genuine race as the rest of the race goes on. Conor O'Brien in the 95 car that, had it not been for that accident it had at Alton Park, probably would be leading the GT4 Championship. As it is, they're a little bit further back. They are a whole 1.5 points behind the 97 car, but the 95 machine looking strong here. It's a good Aston Martin track race though, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. The Astons look strong all season, I would say, actually, in GT4, but especially here. Got some mega performance out of that TF Sport, and it's great to see Conor going so well. As we said, it's his birthday, 20 years old. I actually coached him, when he was 15 or 16. He was a right little shoehorn, and he's grown into a proper man, and it's nice to see him so high in his performance, leading this GT4 class. And yeah, I think they're going to be hard to catch. That Toyota's quick, but the gap that Conor has built is going to be difficult for them to overcome.
Well, on the previous lap, Sam Spelt and Conor O'Brien set identical lap times, 1:34.509, so identical to the thousandth of a second. That's how equally matched these two cars are at the moment. Sam Spelt is pushing hard in the Toyota. There he is. Look, the Speedworks car. That's the gap between the top 2 in GT4. Dan Vaughan, though, was actually the quicker of the 3, so the man third place in the championship with 97, lapping about 3 or 4 tenths quicker than the leaders on the previous occasion. 97 yet to win a race in GT4, actually, despite the fact they're the ones leading the championship. They are still looking for their first victory, but they've had 3 podium finishes, Joe, from the first 4 races, and we say it every year, don't we? You can go out there and win lots of races, but if you're consistently in the top 2, 3 or 4, that in the long run will probably serve you better for the championship.
Yeah, definitely, and there's always this little talk in the paddock, no one's brave enough to do it, but if you finish 4th in every race, you would win the championship every year, and not get any of these pit stop penalties. It's quite hard to control an ego to always do that, but it really shows you that you just need to smash out the consistencies. It's not all about the big wins and the showing off, it is just pounding the results in and out every single round of the championship, and maybe more this year with one less race. A DNF obviously as a percentage is even worse this year.
Yeah, absolutely. No drop scores in British GT either, unlike some other championships. So if you have a non-finish, that's it. You can't take that back. So it is important that you try and avoid them. We've had a few non-finishes. In fact, of the 4 races we've had so far, only one of them has had any non-finishes. But there were 6 non-finishes in that second race at Alton Park nearly a month ago now. We had 3 in GT3 and a couple in GT4 as well. It was a bit of a race of attrition, that one, but generally speaking, driving standards have been great this year, reliability's been good too, and everyone has generally been getting to the end of the races. Right, this battle's hotting up again now, isn't it? Lewis Proctor has sat behind Mike Ligo for 40 minutes in this race, near enough, and now he wants to get through. He's closer this time into paddock, goes to the outside. Is this switchback going to work this time? Closes right in on the red Lamborghini at the apex, and then runs wide on the exit. Now, was that a bit of aero wash, or was he just a bit too eager with the right foot then?
Yeah, I think you've called it right on the first instance. The aero wash is big in this car, so basically the Lamborghini is using the air to create downforce and grip, and then as that air comes off the back of his car, it's turbulent, so it's no longer nice and conformed, and as it hits the front of the McLaren, there isn't quite the same airflow, so it's basically little pockets of air creating a tiny vacuum which doesn't allow the car to grip as well, and it's awful when you're the car behind, even when you know you're faster and you're losing lap time because of it, and it works the tyre harder then to try and create the speed and the grip, and then you start losing more grip, and it's a downward spiral. So yeah, and unfortunately Lewis being there for 20 minutes, that is going to have been almost at its worst now, so he's almost sort of waiting for a mistake to show what pace he's got if he can get past Igo, because I'm adamant he's losing a second a lap here of what he could be doing, looking at the pace of the other McLarens that he could match up the road. This is quite hard for Optima to watch.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. Those Pirelli tyres, a new compound of tyre this year in both GT3 and GT4 actually, and the Pirelli P0 DHE, as it's snappily titled, is the tyre of choice this year for GT3. Being worked hard on the Optimum car, but Michael Igo isn't really driving all that defensively, is he? He's just keeping the McLaren at arm's reach. As soon as Proctor gets a little bit too close for comfort, he'll go to the inside line. Oh, dear me, that was close for comfort. I don't think Ben Hurst in the Century Motorsport BMW that was being lapped there realised that Lewis Proctor was quite so close behind the Lamborghini. He let Igo through okay, but then tried to close the door rather on Lewis, and again Lewis had to get out of the throttle, had to just check up for a second. He dropped back by another car length or so then on the Lamborghini as they head back out into the country. So we are just over 40 minutes into the race. Now the pit stop window, although it's not actually really a window, the pit stop window opens for GT3 drivers after 62 minutes and for GT4 teams after 58. So we are inching towards the pit stop window, but then you can pit any time after that. So you don't have to pit within a certain 10-minute window like we see in the 1 hour sprint races. In these 2 and 3 hour endurance races, you can pit pretty much whenever you like, as long as it's after that point, just before the halfway mark. And might that be somewhere where we see a couple of teams either pit early or a bit late maybe to try and overcome some of this track position deficit? I mean, if you look at Optima Motorsport here, they've got Wilkinson in the car. He's a silver. Maybe leave him out for a lap longer and hope that they can leapfrog the Lamborghini in the pits.
For sure, if you're stuck with the car, the worst thing you can do strategy-wise is copy them. So hopefully you can do either an undercut if you stop first or an overcut if you go longer than them, and just find the time on the track while they're stationary in the pits. You'll be in the pits at the same time, but if you're running in clean air, then it is possible to kind of leapfrog them, and it's a lovely feeling when you're the team. You basically find your driver a position. So you start to see more and more track limits as well, and the track limits are for the car, not for the driver. So you've got 4 for the whole race. So if you're second in and your teammate has kindly used up your 4 lifelines, then you've got to be as good as gold to get through to the end without attracting a penalty, which is never easy.
So we've been talking a lot, Joe, about pros and AMs and silvers. It's all part of this grading system, isn't it? The drivers, every driver out there is given a certain grade, either gold, platinum, bronze or silver. We talk about it a lot, and it plays a huge factor in the racing, but how are those grades decided, so to speak? How do you become a silver driver? How do you go from being a bronze to a silver to a gold to a platinum?
I think it's decided in a dark room in Paris by the FIA, by what I picture as a load of wizards sat around the round table. But there's some methodology to it. So starting at the bottom, bronze, amateur drivers haven't had a race licence before their 40th birthday, and they're doing it for the fun. They're not ever going to be professional. Silver, like we have a few this year in British GT, they're sort of young professionals, so they've had their licence definitely before their 30th birthday, and they're fast and they're looking to go out through the ranks. Golds are paid professionals, and then platinums are factory drivers and XF1. So platinum and gold is very similar, just slightly different colour. Maybe sounds a bit cooler when you're telling someone the story at a bar, but yeah, the big difference is the bronze to silver, and you do get it, and we've seen it with Dehan. He was a bronze, and for me, a genuine bronze, because he was so fast, he got upgraded to a silver. And although an upgrade always sounds good, it's actually a really big negative, and it means that your options are a lot more limited going forward, who you can drive with, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely, and that means that you are then expected all of a sudden to be on the same pace as drivers that a year ago you could lose some time to, and no one would really bat an eyelid. So it's interesting, though. Like I say, it's something we talk about an awful lot, but as for the specific details behind it, even I wasn't aware of some of that, so thanks, Joe. This battle's still bubbling away whilst we've been chatting. I'll tell you what, though, Ollie Wilkinson Lewis Proctor, is not going to be a big fan of Century Motorsport BMWs, because both of the BMWs have now held him up in the last 5 minutes or so. Again, unintentionally, we say this every race, don't we? The GT4 traffic, we say casually, oh, they got in the way of the GT3 car, but they can't just disappear. They have to turn into a corner at some point, and sometimes it can sound like we're putting the blame on their shoulders, but it is very tricky being the slower car being lapped. In a way, it's harder for them than it is for the quicker cars going through.
Yeah, you generally, when I've been in GT4, you generally feel awkward because you're trying not to lose time yourself. That's the most important thing, being selfish. But then you also don't want to impede someone, because if you do impede them, the risk of contact's high, because you're obviously turning across the front of them, essentially. So it is walking a tightrope, and you never do it right. And when I was in the GT3 at Donington last round, I actually had to go and apologise to one of the HHC mechanics because my move was awful on him. I dive-bombed him from 20 metres behind and put him in a really awkward position. And luckily he saw me and did everything in his power to avoid contact. But you do sometimes feel like you're sort of fighting a losing battle. And the GT3s can be a bit rude and robust for me sometimes with the moves.
Yes, but then they have little choice. They've got to go as quickly as they can, and if you spend a corner or two maybe sat behind a GT4 car, you can lose 2 to 3 seconds on your competition. Given how evenly matched the field is this year in both classes, especially in GT3, it can be very hard to gain that back. Getting another good look here at the Audi, but I can tell you up at the front of the field, no positional changes, but some interesting gap development, if you like. Remember I said about 15-20 minutes ago that Sam Dehan probably wouldn't have a hard time getting past Ian Loggy? Well, he's actually losing time to Loggy, or he was on the previous lap. He took nearly a second back out of that time. The gap between Loggy and Dehan, 5th and 6th, 2.5 seconds now, so not likely, you would suggest, to see too many changes there before the pit stops. Sam Smelt here we're seeing in the GT4 Toyota, still running in second place, but catching again slightly Conor O'Brien. It's under 2 seconds now, and Dan Vaughan continuing to catch them. So whilst it's been a fairly calm start to the race in GT4, the Toyota is every bit the match for the Aston Martins. None of them have a success penalty, Joe, so how do you see this dynamic between the Toyota and the 2 TF Sport cars developing into the second stint of the race?
Yeah, I think I've called it completely wrong. I thought O'Brien was going to be untouchable, but maybe that Toyota's looking after its tyre a little better than the Aston Martins, and that's going to be interesting not only for this stint, but obviously they'll change tyres in the driver change, and then that will be the same story at the end of the whole race. So yeah, I can see that Toyota coming on strongly, and its pace suggests that it's not dropping off at all. And it's hard. I'm trying to talk to everyone at home when we talk about these phrases. Dropping off, the tyre has such a short shelf life. 180 kilometres is its life. and as it gets older, it gets slower, and that's the dropping off element. The dropping off is the lap time that we kind of feel in the car, and you just suddenly lose performance. And some cars will look after their tyres better than others for various reasons that are far too mentally inferior to explain, but it generally is an interesting dynamic and another one that we need to keep an eye on. And if anyone at home does have any questions, feel free to tweet in at me, Osborne Joe on Twitter. I'll try and read them out and try and explain the sport that we all love so much.
Might even get a sensible answer as well sometimes. Joe does know his stuff, despite sometimes maybe almost sound like he's trying not to, but no, it's good to have you on board, Joe, and your insight. I was saying to Graham Johnson, who joined me for a support race earlier on, it's great having a racing driver alongside me, because sometimes periods of the race like this, for example, where things to the casual viewer have calmed down quite a lot. You might think, oh yeah, they're all just kind of out on a Sunday afternoon drive now, but there's so much going on inside each and every one of these cars. They're fighting the car through every corner, they're balancing on an absolute knife edge every time they go into a turn, and also they're trying to save the brakes, they're trying to save the tyres, they're trying to monitor the gap to the car in front, behind, don't get any track limits penalties, don't go over the curbs and damage the tyres. There is so much to think about in a racing car. It's not just about sitting in the seat and pressing a few pedals and turning a wheel around.
And they're so fast, so you're doing all of those things while also thinking of your own strategy. The team are on at you. There's live telemetry going back to the pit, so the team can see everything the car's doing, and in that way they can try and help you to be faster. So, for example, let's say the option guys I know well, will have the telemetry of the live tyre pressures, and if Lewis is sat a little bit too close to Igo for a few laps and the front tyre pressure is raised, thus losing performance, they might advise him to find some clear air for a lap or two, get a bit of performance back, and then attack again. So, yeah, as a driver, an hour goes very fast in a race car, mainly because of the workload on the little brain going on.
They've just overtaken. Oh, contact was that, and Michael Igo runs wide, and this time Lewis Proctor's on the inside. It all suddenly kicked off. There's more contact between the Lamborghini and the McLaren. Igo goes to the outside of the 97 car, which is really getting in the way here. There's more touchy-feely stuff between the two of them, but still, Igo hangs on. That all came out of nowhere. The 97 car is the car they're trying to lap. Dan Vaughan, third place in GT4, and he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. I'd like to see that again, because it looked like maybe Igo got into him up at Druids, and that the knock-on effect of that was then that Lewis Proctor got into him. They still couldn't get past the Aston Martin, and there was an awful lot of paint being traded.
Yeah, Vaughan was in the wrong place at the wrong time for about 250 metres. I felt sorry for him, and yeah, it almost looked like Igo outbroke himself again into Druids, which then forced Vaughan out wide, which gave Proctor the opportunity. They were then 3 wide, and it all concertinaed up. And actually, then I saw Proctor getting hit by Neary into the back of Igo, into Graham Hill. So, yeah, Vaughan did a mega job at staying out of trouble there, and nothing he could have done different, in my opinion, to stop any of those issues.
But look at what that's done. It's brought now Jordan Albon onto his tail. This rocket ship drive from the Mustang. Well, we're saying that the Toyota is the only car that can take the fight to TF Sport. Maybe we were wrong, because this Ford Mustang is looking so much stronger in race trim than it did in qualifying yesterday, and Albert is now less than a second behind the third-placed Aston Martin. None of these cars have success penalties to serve, so if Jordan Albert, when he hands this car over to Matt Cowley in the second stint, if Matt can keep this sort of pace up, we might just get Academy Motorsport on the podium. Oh, and that's the leader! That's Conor O'Brien, has spun from the lead of GT4, coming out of Druids, which is where all of the action has been for the last few minutes, and Conor O'Brien he's rejoined. Now, is there damage on the car? Did he jump or was he pushed? It's hard to tell at the moment. There might be some witness marks on the right rear corner. The GT3 cars, remember, were coming through to lap this lot. That's what caused all of the action a lap ago. And poor old Conor O'Brien, who'd led for nearly an hour, and this is what happened, Joe.
Yeah, Neary in the rear corner of him. Difficult from that angle to apportion blame. For me, like we've been saying for the whole race, the GT4s don't have to get out of the way of the GT3, and it kind of looked like Neary was trying to force the issue on the sister car to what we're seeing at the moment, and just turn Conor around. So first instinct maybe looked like it was a little bit aggressive from the GT3 element in that party. Damage doesn't look too bad on the 95. I think it's missing a front right dive plate, so one of the aerodynamical fins was missing, I could see, but looked to be tracking true and straight, so hopefully Conor can recover something and make something out of his birthday.
Well, that changes everything in GT4 then, because now Sam Smelt takes over the lead for the Speedworks Toyota squad, and this now becomes the battle for second place. There is your new class leader then. Toyota are yet to win in the GT4 category. They've had themselves one podium, a third place in race 1 2 weeks ago at Donington Park. Can they get their first victory? We're still over an hour away from the checkered flag, of course, and this scrap for second couldn't be any closer. Jordan Albert right on the tail of Dan Ford. Now, he's kind of cruised up to the back of the Aston Martin over the last few laps. That must fill Jordan with confidence that he can definitely make this move stick, but where does he do it? Where does he get past this Aston Martin?
Yeah, so he's had the opportunity to weigh up the Aston Martin strengths and weaknesses. Looks like he's got good corner entry speed, so he's really gaining in there. Sometimes the concertina effect makes that look stronger. It's either the slipstream or this Mustang has got plenty of ponies under the bonnet, because it is now gaining. Vaughan defending the inside. See what Jordan decides to do. He can keep it on the outside, maybe get cut back to the inside, to the right-hand side. Maybe use a little bit too much curb there. You can see the car bounce up, and that would have lost it a little bit of traction there. But as we see incidents starting to get under investigation more and more, the 18 IGO at 97 one wasn't too serious for me, but yeah, that 8 and 95 one was big ramifications for the GT4 leader at the time.
Yeah, TF Sport, the only way you felt that they could lose this race is through a bit of bad luck, and within the space of just over a lap there, both cars involved in contact. This was the first one. I go up the inside of Dan Ford, and then Proctor into the side of him, and then Richard Neary ends up getting into the back of the McLaren somewhere. That all just was a bit clumsy, really, wasn't it? I don't think there was any malice involved in any of that, and in the end, no places changed, no major damage done, no one ends up pointing the wrong way, but you can see why Proctor went up the inside. There was a gap, but then there just wasn't room for 3 cars.
Yeah, you need that angle there as Igo has contact the second time from the 97 on the outside. Really, Proctor does a mega job not to collect him and send him into the barrier there. So, yeah, I think you're right. I think it's clumsy in that instance. The 95 one, I think, probably needs a bit more investigation to see if there's any blame that needs to be apportioned. And Albert is looking very, very racist. We see the marshals blue flagging them to let them know GT3 cars coming, but at this point both of them are going to be 100% focused on racing each other, and GT3 cars have now got harder work overtaking GT4s who are racing themselves.
Well, we've got cars on 3 different laps here, because Adam Ballon there is trying to put a lap on the GT4 second place battle. The next car in line is James Baldwin, the race leader. He's about to lap the championship leading Lamborghini. This is astonishing stuff. Yes, he's a silver graded driver and Ballon's a bronze, but that means that Ballon has lost nearly 90 seconds to James Baldwin in less than an hour, and I'm saying that more as an appraisal of what Baldwin's done than saying that Ballon's slow. We know Adam Ballon isn't slow, but there you go, Baldwin's got up the inside, he's put a lap on that 72 car, and we cannot yet count out this number 2 McLaren as a championship contender. If at Silverstone at the end of the year they are in the championship conversation, that could prove to be a really, really important move.
Yeah, definitely. And you watch the onboard that we're treated to then. He's so decisive. We see Nick Jones in the gravel, somewhere out the back. That's a big car to get out of that gravel trap. That's going to be on the exit of Hawthorns, which is super, super fast. That's got to be a safety car. That car's not going to be able to get out there under its own power. And this is going to be over the pit stop window. This is going to be carnage.
Yeah, the pit stop window for GT4 opens in 54 seconds, and then another 4 minutes after that, the GT3 pit window opens. So this was the worst possible time. This is what happened to Nick Jones. Oh, it's not contact with the 2Cs car, is it? Oh, it is as well, and that is Jordan Witt diving up the inside. The 66 car had gone a lap down anyway, so our most recent winners, they had a 20-second success penalty to serve as a result of their Donington win. They weren't having a great day anyway here at Brands Hatch, but that just adds insult to injury.
Yeah, I don't think that was a particularly good bit of driving by either. The only positive I would take is they're the same colour cars, so hopefully the damage isn't too bad to their liveries. But yeah, that's how motorsport is sometimes. You can be hero one week for those boys winning at Donington so well. As we see, the safety car has been scrambled. Yellow flag's not quite out, so that move for me is okay by Howard. I can't see any yellow flags on the entry. You can see it there on the board. Ballon hasn't seen it, so he's overtaking back. Potentially this is getting awkward. Now they've slowed down, so yes, so Window's going to open. This is going to become super exciting. Everyone's going to pit. If you can pit under safety car, you obviously lose so much less time as we see the TF car diving in with the Mustang and the other TF car. So TF are going to double stack their cars, change all 4 tyres, 120 litres of fuel in a driver change, and hopefully off they go.
But Sam Smelt did not pit. That's a mistake for me, because the Speedworks squad have left the Toyota out. He could have pitted, the pit window was open, and everybody else is going to come in now and get a free pit stop against them, basically. The Toyota is going to catch the back of the safety car queue, have a slower in-lap now than everyone else did, and I think that they're going to come out behind. So whichever of these 3 cars gets out of the pit lane first, and it should really be the TF Aston Martin, they could take over the GT4 lead.
Yep, you've called it bang on. He won't lose any time, but he will lose track position. So if every other GT4, for example, pits under safety car now, he will be last. So the time loss isn't great, but track position loss is huge, as you said, because he's now having to follow the safety car at 60 kilometres an hour, where these guys all came in under green flag speed, essentially. So, yeah, it's going to be a hard one for him to call, and maybe they just weren't quite sure the window was open for him, and that was a negative for being in the lead and being further up the road.
As far as pit stop penalties in GT4, the 58 HHC car has 20 seconds, the 21 Balf Motorsport McLaren has 15, and the 57 has 10 seconds. No, all the way round, sorry, 57 has 20 and 58 has 10. So none of the cars that were at the front are going to be affected by this, but of course this safety car plays nicely into the hands of anyone with a time penalty, because yes, they're still going to lose the track position, but as you said, they can then coast back up onto the tail of the lead pack. So this is not good news, really, for those that avoided the success penalty, including our overall race leader, it must be said, James Baldwin, who has not only lost about 26 seconds that he had in hand over Rob Collard, but also some of those quick pro-driven cars in the second stint that would have had penalties to serve are going to cruise onto his tail, potentially in the, well, not his tail, but his teammate Michael O'Brien's tail in the second stint. Right now, in comes the Toyota, and also, is that 58, I think, is it? Yeah, 58, that hadn't yet stopped. HXC Motorsport, Patrick Mathiasen in. So this will complete the GT4 pit stops. A GT4 pit stop is over a lap, because, especially for the Silver Cup entrance, they not only have the minimum 150-second time limit, minimum pit stop limit, but they also have an extra 26 seconds thrown on for any of the Silver Cup entrants. So that's why they're still sat there. I guess, therefore, the big winners, in a way, are going to be the only non-Silver Cup entrants in GT4, Balf Motorsport, McLaren, and Mia Flirt, and Ewan Hankey.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that silver penalty obviously hurts even more when you're sat there, and this will help Ewan and hopefully give that Balf McLaren a mega result. The one this really hurts, like in your stomach sick feeling as a pro, is Johnny Adam and Phil King, because they have only just been lapped by the leader. So if this safety car had been a lap earlier, or they'd hold on for another lap, they would be getting this back lap for free. Now, as it stands, they're now a lap down, so it's pretty much game over for them for a decent result for the day, unfortunately.
Because there's no real way of getting that lap back now. Even if they stayed out when the leader pitted, they would then have to pit under green afterwards. So I guess they could get a wave around, but it would be short-term gain for a long-term loss again, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and in British Motorsport we don't have the technical wave arounds. They see, as we see that Discovery doing a good job to pull that big Bentley out, and it'd be interesting if they let Nick Jones carry on. The quickest way to recover that car is now for him to drive off and continue into the race, but obviously multiple laps down. So yeah, there won't be a technical wave around that we see in the States to keep the racing interesting out there for their attention spans. They wave everyone around every safety car to keep everyone on the lead lap. So at the end of Daytona 24 hours, everyone's still on the lead lap, and it's an interesting take on endurance racing, in my opinion. How we do it over here is correct.
Yes, I tend to agree, although as a NASCAR fan I do quite enjoy those close finishes sometimes, but we had a bit of NASCAR action earlier on, haven't we, with the Lamborghini and the Mercedes. Right, GT3 pit window is now open, so I imagine everyone's going to dive for the pit lane this time around. In comes, or out I should say, goes 57, that is, was Gus Bowers in the car. He now hands over to Chris Westmail, who got his first ever British GT victory at Donington last time out. And here come the GT3 pack. So they've left Adam Ballon out, as I suspected. They've also left one of the two C's McLarens out, but everybody else in GT3 dives for the pit lane. And this is the worst nightmare, isn't it? Because the pit lane is already congested with GT4 teams finishing their stops. And now you add in about a dozen or so GT3 cars, and it gets very, very busy down there.
Yeah, definitely. I think Beach Team are going to be the biggest losers at the moment, because that 43 Century BMW we see almost at the top of shot has boxed them in. And with the longer GT4 stop, he will still be there. So hopefully they've got enough time at the end of their pit stop, they can manoeuvre it round. And even with SRO's very clever way of doing this window, giving the GT4s the opportunity to come in first, there is still that one BMW blocking that Aston Martin in. It wasn't his fault, he had nowhere to go. Interestingly, 2Cs leave one car out. I'd imagine that is a fuel rig limitation. The championship only allows one fuel rig per team. So if you're a one-car team, you've got one rig per car. Unfortunately, if you're a two-car team, you've only got one rig for two cars. So they will have to refuel that fuel rig before the other one comes in, so it can have enough fuel to get to the end of the race.
Yes, the car they left out, as you can see, is the number 10 car, so Jordan Witt not yet handing over to Jack Mitchell. This is going to lose them track position, but they had a success penalty anyway, so they were going to come out behind the teammate car. Made sense, I suppose, then, as much as I'm sure Jordan Witt doesn't agree, but it made sense to leave that car out, because they were going to have to spend longer in there anyway. Now, add to this mix, Joe, the fact that the safety car is coming in this lap. We're going to have a really weird situation where there's no one on the track to take the safety car restart, pretty much.
Yeah, so the safety car will just come in with whoever's behind it, and as we see the RGN, I hope that Discovery's got out of the way. Ooh. That is pretty poor, that, I have to say, without throwing people under the bus. That's terrible to have that in the pit lane, losing people time.
Dear, and it's all getting congested behind them as well, number 9
we
there.
see both Ram cars pitting, so, and then we see Collard, he's under his pit time, so he's having to slow down.
Now, yeah, he's got out ahead of Baldwin. How's that happened?
So he just jumped him, he got a shorter pit stop, and off we go. So although we're now under yellow flag, these guys, to the rule, can push as hard as they want, as long as they don't go green sectors. As we see in the background, the safety car coming in, they're pretty much like a lap behind. So they're still all in the best cases. We see the restart actually taken by a GT4 car is behind there. But the big loser is that number 10 car. Unless there's a safety car instantly, they're going to pretty much lose a lap by my mathematician skills.
Well, given how close everyone is, I wouldn't bet against another safety car. So the number 10 car leads the race but hasn't stopped. Sandy Mitchell then is now the lead car that has pitted, but it's somehow leapfrogged ahead of the car that had dominated the early part of the race. And when you bear in mind their pit stops were supposed to be the same time, that does make you wonder whether or not the 78 team have got it right. But then we were questioning this at Donington when they seemed to gain time with the pit stops. Turned out it was completely legal, so we'll wait and see. This is the fight for GT4 honours though. Number 97 now being driven by Jamie Caroline. Right behind him is Matt Cowley in the Mustang, and right behind him is Patrick Kibble, the other TF Aston Martin, and Cowley dives on the inside, gets the lead away from Jamie Caroline, who will try to fight back on the exit and cannot. Academy Mustang into the lead, they're looking for their first victory of 2020. That was a brilliant move, and I don't think Caroline expected it.
I don't think Caroline saw it coming. He looked like he was still asleep. Caroline just sent it. He completely levered Caroline down the inside, and looks like he's got the pace as well. It was super aggressive, closing the door into the next right-hander of Westfield. So, yeah, that's going to be interesting. He's now got 53 minutes to get his head down and try and pull away from these seemingly very strong TF Aston Martins.
Academy's best result was 4th place in race 1 last time at Donington Park. Here's the replay, Joe. Almost sold him the dummy, didn't he? Caroline didn't think he had to defend, and then all of a sudden it turned out he did.
Yeah, sold him the dream, and then you can see from the reaction of Caroline, it surprised him. He went to turn in, he went, oh my God, there's a 5-ton Ford American thing on my inside, I best not. So we see Witt handing over now, but as I said, I think this is going to be a lap down the way the safety car came in. And there's not a lot they can do. Same for Ballon. They kind of had no option but to roll the dice. I personally think, uneducated guess, that the other Barwell car is going to be fine on the pit stop, purely because I think it's the RGN car getting held up by the D&G recovery truck. Bit of free sponsorship for them maybe, and that was the difference in the pit stop times.
Right, okay, well Sandy Mitchell should come through then momentarily to take the overall race lead now that Jordan Witt has pitted. Michael O'Brien second in the Team Rocket RJN car, third is Dean McDonald in the 9 2Cs Motorsport McLaren, fourth Yelmer Bourbon for Ram Racing, still ahead of the 69 car interestingly then, and Patrick Kujala. From Pereira is going to be 6th for WPI Motorsport, 7th then will be Ollie Wilkinson. He was the car we were just watching, the orange McLaren, just fractionally ahead of Sam Neary in the Ram Racing Mercedes. So Mitchell leads, O'Brien second, McDonald third, silver drivers, all of them. The top pro is Jelmer Bourbon, the green Mercedes in the background, 4.4 seconds off the race lead. If he can overtake the cars in front, he should be quicker than them. Are Ram Racing in the pound seat now?
Yes, I would say so, especially with the safety car. It's easy to forget how big that lead was that Baldwin had built up for RJN, and that was just all evaporated with something that wasn't his doing, obviously Nick Jones being in the gravel trap. So I think, yeah, Jelmer's probably your best shout, but as we've seen, overtaking is a bit of a premium here, and he's got a lot of cars to overtake if he wants to win today.
Johnny Adam on his first flying lap back in the championship this year sets the fastest lap at 1:25.4. That's still 8/10 outside of his lap record, though, that he set in 2016, the old shape Aston Martin Vantage GT3 car. This then is Michael O'Brien. Now, as well as watching the pro drivers against the silvers, we need to keep an eye on which of the silver drivers is going quickest. The first full flying lap then for Sandy Mitchell was at 1:25.9, so was Michael O'Brien's in second, and they were both quicker than Dean McDonald there in third, but they are dealing with traffic. McDonald will be the first to feel the pressure from Jelmer Bourbon in that green Mercedes, who is bringing with him his teammate Patrick Kujala. Now, Patrick is a silver driver, but a very quick silver driver. At the moment, he seems almost able to live with the pace of Jelmer Bourbon.
Yeah, and that's what we talked about, this drop-off earlier in terms of the tyre. At the start, it won't be so much of a negative. We've seen Kujala with a massive slide through turn one. Great Scandinavian car control on the coming to the floor there. And yeah, the weight will start to hurt him later on in his stint, and that's going to make it hard for him to stay with Jelmer, I think, but also hard to stay in front of that red Lamborghini with Frank Pereira in the third different pro we've had in that Lamborghini. It does seem like Michael Igo goes through his pro drivers quicker than I go through tissues when I've got a cold.
The thing is, though, if you buy yourself a Lamborghini GT3 car, you've kind of got your pick of some of the best GT pros in the world. And so, yeah, he's trying to find one that he gels with, it seems. From Pereira, then, is the second of the pros in the field at the moment, behind Jelmer Bourbon, who we're following now. So, second in the Pro-Am class, but more significantly, that means that of those that we expect to be quick in this second stint, he's not that far behind the leading pro driver, who we ride on board with now. Jelmer talked us around a lap of the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit earlier on. He sounded very calm doing it. I think if we were to speak to him over the live radio now, he might be a little more agitated as he tries to chase down potentially the first victory of the season for Ram Racing. In GT4, the Mustang of Matt Cowley getting away, it would seem, here from Jamie Caroline in second, and Patrick Kibble now flashing his lights at his teammates. I'm sure Jamie really appreciates that.
Yeah, that's a bit weird. Yeah, they obviously don't get on. There's no way I'd ever dream of flashing a teammate that I liked and got on. So, yeah, that's a nice bit of interteam rivalry. Tom Ferry of TF Sport, I'm sure, will be spurring them on, looking behind closed eyes. But yeah, Jelmer's a consummate professional, and yeah, he's Dutch. They've got that crazy medicine out there that seems to keep him all calm. So I'm sure his heart rate still is low enough. But Kujala, if anything, is catching him a little bit with the ebb and flow of this race. So yeah, I think the next 5 minutes will give us a huge insight to where we're going. And those Mercedes do look properly planted out the back. And we've had a question actually from Chris McGarren on Twitter saying the sparks we can see from these Mercedes, just got a glimpse of it there. Is that an issue? It's actually intentional. The side skirts of those cars are designed to run low and almost support the car through the corner, and they just have a titanium plate to stop them wearing out and wear out Jonathan Palmer's tarmac instead in this case.
Yeah, it certainly looks spectacular, doesn't it? So too does the driving style of Michael O'Brien, because he is catching Sandy Mitchell. The gap came down by half a second last time around. Sandy Mitchell, your leader, Michael O'Brien second. There is the confirmation that the gap has come down quite considerably, actually, over the last lap or so. The gap was 1.75 at the start of that, the 47th lap of the race. Is now 1.6, so it comes down by another tenth and a bit. Michael O'Brien looks a bit quicker then. Dean McDonald in third is not matching them quite, and Jelmer Bourbon in fourth, also not really matching them, because he's stuck behind the 2 Seas McLaren. So if Michael O'Brien can really get a wriggle on here, close in and then overtake Sandy Mitchell, that won't be the work of a moment. He might be able to escape before Jelmer Bourbon, the leading pro driver, gets onto his tail potentially. Behind them, by the way, Ollie Wilkinson still 7th ahead of Sam Neary, with Sennett Fielding in the Audi catching them. So the Audi is in 9th place but catching the 7th place battle, and Jack Mitchell rejoined after his pit stop in 10th position. I don't think he's quite gone a lap down, but he's certainly a long way behind the race leaders. and that has taken them out of contention for a repeat podium, like the one that they got at Donington last time out. In GT4, Cowley, Caroline Kibble the top three, Ben Green is fourth for Century Motorsport, James Kell fifth in the Speedworks Toyota, and he's only going to be a handful of seconds off the class lead, so this might not be all over yet for Speedworks in GT4.
Yeah, hopefully not. Those guys are good guys, but also engineering a fast car, as we saw in the first stint with Smelt at the wheel. So, yeah, I think GT4 is really going to hot up that Mustang out my window, having a big slide, working his tyres hard, and I could quite easily see it be a six-car battle as we get a replay of what happened earlier. And it's really difficult. There's obviously contact, but they're very alongside each other. It'd be interesting if we could hear from Nick Jones to kind of see if he'd seen that McLaren or if it was unsighted on him, because it didn't look intentional. I thought the McLaren was actually a lot further down the inside than I had first appreciated. So I anticipate the theme of the day of no further action, as we've seen so far with every incident so far.
Yeah, worth mentioning the incident between 95 and 8, there was no further action either, so that was Richard Neary into the side of the, at the time, GT4 leader Conor O'Brien. No further action for that one, but the incident we've just seen between 10 and 66 is still under investigation. Right, lead gap went out last time around to nearly 2 seconds again. Sandy Mitchell responding to Michael O'Brien in the McLaren. Dean McDonald still with Yelma Berman and Patrick Kajala and Franck Pereira, three of the quickest drivers in the championship, right on his tail. Fastest lap now belongs to Phil Keane, a 1:25.350, although he is still behind a lap down in 12th position. No further action, you're absolutely right, Joe, between the T. Parker Bentley and the 2Cs McLaren.
I need to buy a lottery ticket today. I think there's something right today. There wasn't enough of either party doing something wrong to act on there. And it's always unfortunate when someone's race ends in the gravel trap, but it can be a racing incident, and we don't all need to get shouty and pointy and start blaming everyone.
Yes, we do seem to live in a society, don't we, where everything must be somebody's fault. But in racing, sometimes two drivers just want to occupy the same piece of road, and when you're travelling at those sort of speeds, a simple lack of communication sometimes can lead to a bit of contact. So no malice there, no further action, no penalty required, which is good news, because we can now just continue the race. Not good news for Team Parker Racing there, out of the race, and the person that they feel put them in the gravel doesn't get a penalty, but they will live to fight another day, and they'll be back at Donington in a few weeks' time, hoping to repeat their success from 2 weeks ago. Right, this battle then at the front end of GT3. From Pereira, we're on board with. There was a bit of a mistake I noticed coming out of Sterling's last time for Patrick Kajala, and Kajala is the silver-graded driver in a pro sandwich, so he probably feels a bit of pressure here to keep the pace up. It's not really holding up Pereira, though, is he exactly?
No, but he's getting into that point now, Frank, where he's getting into the dirty air, and these pros are so closely matched anyway that if you're losing a tenth or two of the dirty air off the back of Kajala, that might be enough where he just can't get any closer for the moment and needs to wait for the cars to change and see if he can create a bit more pace in his Lamborghini compared to that sparky Mercedes in front of him,
which maintains the position for the time being. They are 0.8 of a second behind Berman, who's actually on the previous lap dropped away from Dean McDonald slightly. There are the leaders. 1.8 was the gap. O'Brien was a tenth quicker last time. He's 4/10 quicker this time. It's now smaller than it's been so far. The distance between 78 and 2. There are no back markers in play here, so this is genuine pace from Michael O'Brien, and McLaren tries to chase after the Lamborghini. Both of these cars looking for their first wins. In fact, to find a previous race winner, you have to go down to 6th place from Pereira in the WPI Motorsport Lamborghini. The top 5 yet to be victorious in 2020. In GT4, another car looking for its first victory is the Toyota, but it's under pressure here. James Kell doesn't seem to quite have the speed that Sam Smelt had in that first stint. He's under pressure now from Jordan Collard.
Yeah, we can see that McLaren looks very racy, and it'd be interesting to see if we can go there. And actually, we'll maybe get a bit more information on that Toyota and its pit stop strategy. Kelvin, shine us some light.
I'm here with Mick Sargent, the team manager. Mick, your guys stayed out one extra lap in the GT4 slot. Why was that?
So we inherited the lead when the 95 Aston spun. The safety car was called, and we were just coming up to the 58-minute where the window starts, basically. So we we were a bit cautious whether we should pit. We ended up doing another lap, so it might cost us a couple of seconds, I think.
Thankfully, you still managed to do the change whilst the safety car was out. Thankfully, you still did the change whilst the safety car was out. So that's
yeah, we still got the whole job done while the safety car was out, and it's all a bit nip and tuck now. I think we came in first, and we're now fifth, but it's closed the whole gaps up between the whole car. So yeah, we'll see. We maybe did go for an extra lap under the safety car, but it was so close at the window on the 58 minutes whether we could call him in or not, so we erred on the side of caution and just did another lap.
We will see. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Kelvin. So interesting then. It was a decision they made. It wasn't that they missed the pit window, or they kind of did, but they thought maybe not getting a penalty was the safer route to go, but it really has cost them.
Yeah, definitely. I said at the time, I think it was the problem of being first on the road in GT4s, that they had the hardest call to make in terms of were they going to pit with the window open, and if they had pitted too early, they would have had to drive all the way through the pit lane and lost even more time. So as we see O'Brien going through on Collard there, it shows you how close, and then Toyota runs wide, and there's the position for Collard, and that's the easiest overtake he'll have of his day. And again, I don't think anyone did anything wrong. Maybe the Toyota was just looking in his right-hand mirror a little bit, could see that RJN rocket McLaren and just caught on sight, and then suddenly his whole world unravels as every GT3 car and his dog comes through. And yeah, hopefully we can have a chance to get a mega replay. Well queued up guys in the truck, and yeah, just runs wide, has to wait to get back on the track before he can get on the throttle, and there's 3 seconds of your life that you'll never get back.
Yeah, once you get a wheel on the grass there, the track keeps going right, and your car won't go right anymore because the left-hand side wheels are off the road. So unfortunately, kind of sucks you out into the gravel trap, and no damage done. But you use the right word there, Joe. The race unravelling rather for them from Pereira, almost into the back there of Patrick Ayala in the 69 Ram Racing Mercedes, which is now falling back from the number 6 example up the road of Yalma Berman. That extra weight that the silver cars have to carry maybe starting to play a part, and that could be the deciding factor here in maybe giving Pereira a chance to get through.
Yeah, exactly. And we talk about these tyres starting to go off, and it's almost like a bit of an exponential rate. So once the pressure gets too high, the air in that tyre, it generates more heat quickly, and then the pressure gets higher, and before you know it, you're driving around on beach balls with no grip. So he's got a long 40 minutes left, I suggest, to hold off the Flying Frenchman.
Critical point coming here, because the overall race leaders are about to lap the GT4 leaders, who we know are in their own titanic tussle. Sandy Mitchell gets past the 95 of Patrick Kibble into clearways. I also noticed that Dean McDonald is now closer to Michael O'Brien than O'Brien is to the race leader, although they're pretty equidistant again now as they come onto the pit straight. O'Brien's going to catch them into Paddock Hill Bend. Is he close enough to get up the inside? Yes, just about, but that was a proper overtake. It wasn't a simple, straightforward driving straight past the GT4 traffic. He had to really outbrake the 95 car, and 97 turns in. TF Sport have had quite enough of being nerfed out of the way by GT3 cars. They're not moving aside for anyone, and it's costing Michael O'Brien.
Yeah, we've just seen Sandy Mitchell get the rub of the green slightly better with the traffic, as has McDonald, I think. So O'Brien now just needs to get his head down and show that pace that he had at the start of this stint in terms of catching Mitchell. And yeah, I think TF couldn't have painted their cars any brighter to not get hit by this GT3. So hopefully they can stay clean now for the rest of the race.
Yeah, back down the hill they go. I mean, this is such an important moment. You can gain tenths of a second when you're out there on your own, but as soon as you get into traffic, as I said, you can lose handfuls of seconds or gain handfuls of seconds on the cars that you're trying to race. Here we see Kujala at the inside of Kibble now into Westfield. That puts him offline on the way in though, and so possibly the car behind might be able to get a run. In the end then, the leaders have all got through in more or less one piece. Michael O'Brien is still about a second and a half behind Sandy Mitchell. And watching on rather nervously, I'd imagine, for the pit lane is James Baldwin. But Kelvin, that was an astonishingly good first stint from James.
James, I think Joe Osborne said it. I think before the safety car came in, that was nearly a 30-second lead. That was one of the best opening stints I think I've ever seen in GT. I'm basically saying, James, how good that was. That for an opening stint, I think you built up something like a 30-second lead. And as Joe Osborne has been singing your praises all day, I think he's got a soft spot for you, actually. But just how much of an exceptional driver you are, coming from obviously the virtual world into the real life world. This is the second time you also put the the car on pole in qualifying. You've had an exceptional run so far. The stint, it surely couldn't have gone any better for you.
Yeah, stint was good. Tidy, I think that's what all stints need to be, really. You don't have to push like a madman like in quali, but I mean, that was the longest stint I've done in the dry, and I learned quite a lot how the tyres behaved and almost how like easy you have to drive the car to get time from it. So the laps I was pushing a bit harder, I was going slower. So it was quite a big learning curve. So I wouldn't say it was perfect, but it was very good. I was happy with it. Yeah.
There's obviously with the initial safety car, your lead was unfortunately succumbed to that, and now you've gone back to second. What's the plan now going forward? I know that Michael's been caught just as quick as he's catching the leader, so there's going to be an added bit of pressure coming from behind as well.
Yeah, well, obviously Michael's out with the pros, so the pros are going to be all over him, no doubt. But it's just one of those things. Like, we had an incident with one of the emergency trucks in the pits, which lost us the lead, unfortunately. But I mean, Michael is all over Sandy at the moment, so I think our car genuinely is quicker in the race than it is in qualifying relative to the others. So yeah, we'll see. I can't do anything, so I'm going to relax and watch Michael do his stuff.
James, I just love how calm and relaxed you are. That this is a complete new environment for you, and you're literally taking it in your stride. So it's great to see. Well done.
Thank you.
Back to you guys.
For a complete novice to racing, he does sound a bit like he's still sat in his bedroom in his pyjamas racing on a sim, doesn't he? He's so relaxed. Now, we are going safety car. I thought this might happen. Typically, we went to the interview just as something kicked off on track. Jordan Collard in the 58 HHC McLaren, something fairly catastrophic has gone wrong with the left rear tyre. It looks like it's exploded completely coming out of Surtees, and look at the bits of McLaren that have been scattered across the road. There is no choice here but to throw a safety car, Joe.
Yeah, definitely. We can see the rear left of that 58 car has had an issue with that tyre. To me, it looks like a simple delamination. You might see it here. So it's already starting to shred bits, and then suddenly it goes. You can see that carcass of the tyre, that big black flappy thing. It's basically the bit that should be going round and round quite nicely, but it has lost its life. Looks like it's probably the outer edge, so what we would call the tyre wall. And that can happen for various reasons. It could be damage, it could be contact, it could be setup. You can run such an aggressive setup that the tyre wall basically fails for the load you're asking of it. So this is going to be interesting to see how this falls for people. Obviously, the leaders are all ebbing and flowing, but this is going to put everyone on top of each other. Keane, is he going to get his lap back now? He might do, you know, the way that this has fallen. So that'll be interesting to see how that one goes. They're going to wave everyone around until they get the Black Bull Lamborghini behind him, which is just coming past us now. So probably another 3 or 4 cars in between that, and then they'll be good to go. But yeah, you basically can't drive that car back now. The damage on it, you could see the sort of the ferocity of the flailing tyre. It would just rip the car to shreds. So Jordan going over to look. I don't think he's going to be able to fix that personally, but he's probably just make sure the power's off and everything's safe, and then the marshals will be able to recover the car to a safe place from there, hopefully. But yeah, back to the interview with James Baldwin. What a chilled guy. That's wicked to see. I haven't yet met him actually, so I need to go and say hello, but you can tell he spent a lot of his time in a dark bedroom with not a lot of sunlight, because there's not a lot that faces him.
He is so chill, isn't he? So calm, taking it all in his stride, and you know, I think that might be the right attitude to have. I think a lot of drivers in his position would be, you know, their eyes would be out on stalks, they'd be overthinking everything, the pressure would get to them, and maybe this is one of those strange things coming from a sim racing background. Maybe he's used to racing being a relaxing, fun, chilled environment, and if he's able to transition that across into the real thing, it could be a real asset moving forward in his career. I'm trying to look at who the winners and losers are here for this safety car, but honestly, I don't think much is going to change, because everyone was so close together before the safety car came out. And it's not really like the pros were making electrifying progress. Yelmer Berman took over the number 6 car in 4th, he's still 4th. Fran Pereira took over in 6th, he's still in 6th place. So really, all this actually does is bunches those 3 silver cars at the front together. Michael O'Brien was a bit quicker than Sandy Mitchell before the safety car came out, so maybe he's going to be able to get past Sandy on the restart. Sandy Mitchell then leads for Barwell, second Michael O'Brien for Team Rocket, Jensen Team Rocket RJN, and Dean McDonald in 3rd. They are the first 3 cars in the queue. The green Mercedes is 4th, that's Yelmer Berman, with his teammate right behind him, 69, Patrick Kunyala. and then from Pereira in the Lamborghini is in 6th position. Then the GT4 Traffic, who are having their own sensational race for the lead, because Matt Cowley in the Academy Motorsport Mustang, who had been getting away from Jamie Caroline, that gap comes right back down. So the 61 Ford Mustang ahead of the 97 Aston Martin and the 95 Aston Martin, second and third. Fourth place is the 42 BMW right behind him. You can see the four GT4 cars together, the grey and white Mustang, the two yellow Aston Martins and the white BMW, with James Kell now at the wheel of the white and red Toyota, number 23, in 5th place, although he had dropped back some way in the early stages. The other one I'm keen to keep an eye on here, Joe, is Ewan Hankey, because Ewan Hankey, as I said, the only pro driver in the GT4 ranks. This safety car has really benefited and almost could bring them back into contention for a podium.
Yeah, definitely, and he's probably the biggest winner out of this. It's nice that actually the top, 6 GT3 cars are uninterrupted by GT4s, and then we've got the top GT4s behind them in order. That 42 BMW has been quite quiet so far, but I think that car could be something to watch. I think they've got a real good chance of a podium here. Century run a good job with that BMW. I know Rob Courtnidge is engineering that car this weekend, so that car will be fully on it. So yeah, interesting seeing. We also saw a shot there of the 66 Bentley getting a new set of tyres and heading out. So probably just checking the car's okay. Gives Scott Malvin, some time to have some fun around here and maybe just see where that car is, pace and performance-wise. Just see him out the window clearing the gravel out of the car. So interesting, maybe we'll get a shot next lap into Druids. Just make sure there's not a shed load of gravel on the track there.
Yeah, the team will do a good job of cleaning it out, but it gets everywhere in places that you just can't reach really with a hoover to get rid of it. So yeah, that is always a possibility. I think they could still score a couple of points actually. I think if you finish the race, you can still score points within your class. So Malvern, maybe there is a point to getting them back out there, although they're some way back in the championship, despite that victory that they had last time out. Now, Matt Cowley is a driver who is doing rather well here, leading in the Academy Mustang, and it was a fantastic opening stint from his teammate Jordan Albert, who started the race 8th, and by the end of the stint was into the podium places. He's caught his breath now after that mega stint, and he's down in the pit lane with Kelvin.
Jordan, you had a great first stint. I think you call it 8th you started, and you got up to a podium place there. Fantastic for you. The safety car has come out now. You guys are obviously leading, but you've still got the pressure from the Astons behind.
Yeah, so love that stint. We started second to last effectively. We had a very tricky day yesterday. We found a small problem with the car, and I've got to say a massive shout out to these guys behind me, because they stayed up late last night and they fixed the problem. We were in touch with Multimatic, and now we're absolutely flying out there. So I was loving it. And yeah, now my teammate Matt, he's cool, calm. We got the two Astons behind, but I think we got them covered. It will be critical in the first opening lap to keep them behind, and then I think we should be good. But I can't really watch. It's hard.
And when you guys took the lead, I think there was contact with the Aston. That was obviously an opportunity for you guys to sneak through and claim the lead. I guess when opportunities do arise like that, you've just got to take them.
That's the thing, yeah. You got to keep pushing, and things happen. You know, you just got to make sure you're not the one that's had an incident. But when I saw that, just went my way. It was a very big bunch of GT3s at that point, so I think they may have got caught up in that. I didn't see clearly, but after that, I just got my head down and got some good times instead.
I do love. I've just been chatting to James Baldwin, and you younger drivers, I can say that because I'm 36. But I just love how cool and calm and collective you are. It's great to see. And I guess for me, maybe because I'm an amateur driver, but when I'm there, the race weekend can be quite intense. And in and out of the car, the sense of jeopardy, the pressure, and obviously with the added sense of pressure, with the safety cars, it adds a complete different element to the race. And for me, I can speak from experience, that really does mix it up a little bit, and your emotions kind of run high, but you seem to take all this in your stride.
It does. You got to look out for every single opportunity. There's so many variables on a race weekend. It's not just about driving for lap time. You've got to get the pit stops absolutely spot on. You got to get your training away from the track, really intense, working with the team, planning for what tyres we're going to use, set up all these different tweaks, where the others may be weak. So there's so many elements. The driving is just a very small part of it. There's so much prep outside of it, as you know. So it's all got to come together. It looks like it's happening today. So it's been a long way.
Cool, calm, collected. You had a
Jordan Albert with a brilliant first stint. That, I mean, we're at a circuit at which I kind of jokingly made the point, Joe, that it's supposed to be almost impossible to overtake here in such evenly matched machinery as this, but that Mustang was making great progress in the first part of the race.
Yeah, as we see how he kind of inherited one of the places from that contact that we saw no further action on, and Conor O'Brien will be very aggrieved about that. But yeah, he did a mega job, really calculated, and I don't think there's a mark on his car, which is always impressive when you can overtake that many people without having to get robust on them. So great job by Jordan. We were teammates a few years ago when he was on the McLaren DDP programme, as we see. Still quite a lot of debris actually. We saw the TF car hit that, so I was hoping we'd be out this safety car relatively soon, but I think unfortunately they've recovered the car well, but it's kind of in between marshal points, so I think maybe they're struggling to get a marshal to that location to clear the debris from that car we see Jordan Collard walking away from. And unfortunately for him, he's the furthest away from the pits as well, so his day gets even worse. It's a 20-minute walk back to the pits, best case scenario.
Nice place to watch the race from, I suppose, although I don't think he's really in a spectating mood after what's happened to him this afternoon. But if you ever do come to Brands Hatch, well worth having a wander out onto the Grand Prix loop. Even if there's no racing going on down there, it's just a great place to go. It's a nice walk. Quite slippery when wet, as I found out a few years ago when I had a bit of a tumble on the Exeter Westfield on the muddy path. But it's a really spectacular place to go and watch. And if you do get a chance to see racing, especially GT racing out there, the cars are on the limit. It is one of the best sequences of corners in British motorsport. As Joe says, though, we might be a little further away from a restart than we were hoping. 26 minutes just under left in the race, and there is the team Parker Bentley back in the fray, albeit 20 laps down or so. Sandy Mitchell then leads for Barwell Motorsport. Second place, Michael O'Brien in the number 2 McLaren. Third, Dean McDonald in another McLaren, but for 2Cs Motorsport. Fourth for the first of the 2-round racing Mercedes, Jelmer Berman, with his teammate Patrick Ayala right behind him. Rob Pereira 6th, Ollie Wilkinson 7th for Optimum Motorsports then, and fielding in the Audi. I'm still saying that they've got a chance to get into the top half dozen here, I think. They are in 8th place. Sam Neary 9th for Team ABBA, 10th place for Jack Mitchell, and 11th for Johnny Adam. Now, Johnny Adam, Joe, he's back on the lead lap. I don't think Phil Keane is, but Johnny Adam has got the Beach Team Aston Martin back onto the lead lap. What can he do from 11th place?
Sorry, I was listening, but I'm not going to talk about what you're talking about. I can just see out the window the Alfa McLaren going very slowly around turn 3. A little bit awkward. It looks like to me a front left puncher the way the car's sat down.
From that debris, maybe?
Could be, because it's sharp, it's carbon composite and stuff. Unfortunately, Ewan's now got the longest bit of the lap, as we see. That, for me, isn't the whole wheel the way it looks. It's the tyre coming off. And as tempting it is to turn right now and loop into the pits the back way, you would lose the whole lap, which I think he's going to do, which I was trying to work out in my mind if it's quicker to do that and get that lap deleted, or would it be quicker to go all the way around. Time will tell. Hopefully Balfe can throw a tyre on it, but they're going to be a lap down now no matter what. So yeah, I think your shot at debris is probably the one. The point you made before, you're going to have to say, because I couldn't concentrate on two things at once, I'm afraid.
I've forgotten. That was at least 30 seconds ago. What was I saying? Johnny Adam, yes, back on the lead lap.
Yes, exactly. So, yeah, that's mega news for him. I didn't see that coming. That was a good bit of fortune, and obviously he was quick. So he created more luck in that instance. He's a long way back, but you're only in it for one race. If Andrew's given him the go-ahead to take some chunks off the car, then he could have a very interesting stint. I think realistically he could probably pick off maybe his way up to the back of the Audi of centre fielding. It's a seriously bright car, so he's going to be able to pick people's attentions in the mirrors, I would suggest. And just watching the cars under safety car, it might be quite boring to normal people, but I generally get quite excited watching it, just on drivers' attitudes. And for me, I have to say, Ben Green, the first place BMW GT4, is the guy working the car the hardest, left to right, with his steering inputs. It probably made me look like an idiot now, but that's just interesting that he's got the most confidence to drive it like that, which in turn will generate the most heat. So under a restart, if he's got a few more degrees of tyre temp than the rest, that means that he's going to be quicker, and all this marginal gain stuff is hugely interesting to me anyway.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It means he can be more on his toes on the restart and might be able to gain some ground and possibly fight for a podium. Ewan Hankey then in the pit lane, and I guess the reason that he decided to take that shortcut into the pit lane was to ensure he didn't do any more damage to the car. Sometimes running around on the rim after the tyre had gone down can do a bit more damage. Apparently there's another slow car, which was the Ewan Hankey car, which I think is why the safety car has stayed out an extra lap. But we are going racing this time with, we're going to have about 22 minutes left on the clock, and it couldn't be any closer out front. Sandy Mitchell, Michael O'Brien, Dean McDonald, silver drivers in the top three, with Jelmer Berman, the first of the pros, in fourth place for Ram Racing. Championship contenders up towards the sharp end as well, and with Phil Keane, the championship leader, off the lead lap, we are going to see some changes at the top of the points. Right, out of clearways they go. Green flag is back in the air. Hopefully that's the last we see of the safety car. It's bunched the field up nicely. Now let them race for the final 22 minutes in round number 5 of the Intelligent Money British GT Championship. Across the line they go, and Jelmer Berman already on the attack there, trying to find a way past Dean McDonald for third. I think he is quicker than Dean, but he needs to try and get on with this before the leading two escape again. Yeah, definitely, and it's a close restart from anyone. But I'd say Jelmer's probably the guy looking most likely to make a move in that top 6 pack. And it's really chaotic back there as well, as we see that BMW kind of get rudely shuffled out of the way by the GT3s, but then the TF Aston I can see out the window has also been done that. So yeah, let's see. It's given Kajala maybe a chance to get his tyres back to a more optimal condition, so he might be able to attack Berman a little bit. It's the whole inter-team rivalry, which is interesting. Berman giving it a bit more weaving. They're not quite back up to temperature potentially, so interested to see if those cars get even faster over the next few laps. Yeah, they're also dodging, I think, a little bit of carbon fibre that hadn't quite been picked up as well, so that's an added obstacle for them to negotiate as they head out of Westfield Corner then. So this is essentially the top 6 cars, and then everyone else was stuck behind the GT4 leaders, so there's a bit of a gap back to Ollie Wilkinson and Senan Fielding, scrapping over 7th. We're on board with Scott Pereira now in the WPI Motorsport Lamborghini, the car that won the opening race at Donington Park last time when it was Michael Igo and Andrea Caldarelli piloting it. Frank Pereira, though, first appearance in the championship, and he is up there in the lead pack, which comes across the start-finish line. It seems to me, Joe, like that Lamborghini off a restart has a bit of an advantage. Obviously, Sandy Mitchell is the leader, which gives him naturally an edge in that he can choose when to go on the restart. But the first lap or so, he seems able to get away from O'Brien, and then O'Brien closes in. Is that because the McLaren doesn't work its tyres quite as hard as the Lamborghini? Yeah, it could be. It could also be a slight setup change as well. So it's so difficult from the so many externalities to work out. I think we've got a replay coming up of a bit of action going on here. So what have we got exactly? We've got the BMW. Whoa, that is robust with the closing of the door. I would say that was a slam, and that was a vault door being slammed, not a closing of the door. So yeah, I think it'd be interesting if that Aston's got any punch. You can see how aggressive the dive planes are on that BMW, and it was rubbing against his rear left. So could be interesting to see if Kibble can continue, but Green did get the place and has got onto that podium. Yeah, absolutely. So he may have slammed the door in Ben Green's face, but Green has been able to get into the podium places. And that BMW looks a lot more competitive this weekend than it ever did at Donington a couple of weeks ago. So we'll see whether he can maybe challenge Matt Cowley, who has a 0.6 of a second lead over JB Caroline at the top of the GT4 ranks. In GT3, I reckon it's getting tighter again as they come across the start-finish line there. Michael O'Brien was 0.8 of a second adrift of Sandy Mitchell at the start of the 64th lap. They complete the lap, and it comes down by 0.02 of a second. They're pretty much matching each other. Dean McDonald still third, Jelmer Berman fourth, Kajala fifth, Pereira sixth, 2.9 seconds covering the top 6 drivers as they turn towards the right-hander at Druids Corner. The GT4 lead is about to come across the start-finish line, and they're even closer again. Only 0.4 between Cowley and Caroline, so Ford Mustang versus Aston Martin for the GT4 lead, and Ben Green is right on them as well. So the top 3 in GT4 are nose to tail. It's the third place car though that's making all the progress. He was nearly a second quicker than Matt Cowley on the previous lap. Hopefully we'll get a look at that GT4 battle shortly, but of course you daren't take your eyes off this pack because they're all so close together. One mistake from any one of these drivers could see a whole load of places shuffling. Yeah, definitely, and I think we're seeing a slight bit more aggression in Jelmer in terms of his paces there, but he's starting to look to the inside of McDonald in some of these corners, just showing his headlights there in the mirror, trying to catch McDonald's attention and eye just to distract him a little bit. But I think historically the Mercedes being so strong out the back, but to be honest it looks like the McLaren is matching it this weekend in terms of the high-speed performance, which is
interesting knowing all the BOP changes and the hits that McLaren has taken weight-wise. So it all looks very, very even.
Yeah, there is nothing to choose between them, which is good because you get close competition. It does rather mean that overtaking could be tricky. Up towards paddock they go once again then, and Dean McDonald here, the number 9 car, running in 3rd position. Number 9 have had a 3rd place in the season opener at Alton Park, a race that the sister car arguably should have won, but ended up getting a penalty whilst they were leading. This battle's pretty entertaining as well. Wherever you are in GT3 or GT4, it seems, you've got someone to play with. Ollie Wilkinson in 7th for Optimum Motorsport has the Audi of Senan Fielding right behind him. Then Sam Neary, who is a pro, and Jack Mitchell, another silver. Now, Jack Mitchell, remember, they pitted that number 10 car a lap later than everybody else in GT3. It cost them a lot of track position, but they had a 10-second penalty to serve anyway for finishing 3rd at Donington last time. He's got Johnny Adam right on his gearbox as they head back out onto the top end of the circuit. Lead gap hovering at just under a second, so at the moment, Joe, O'Brien doesn't seem to have an answer for Mitchell's pace.
No, I would agree with that, and watching the sector timings, there doesn't seem to be a sector where one is stronger than the other. They're very much matching each other, so it's going to be interesting over this next 15 minutes to see if they're going to be able to do anything to do anything. We're also getting news of a penalty for the 96 Optimum car. They're going to have to do a drive-through for a safety car infringement, so that potentially, most logically, would be in front of the car in front before the start line, which is easily done if it's a GT4 car, because obviously they've got a lot less power.
Yes, well, Optimum were the first car behind the GT4 traffic at the restart, so that would make some sort of sense. So Ollie Wilkinson and Lewis Proctor's day, unfortunately, not getting much better. They're running in 7th at the moment. Remember, 12 months ago, Ollie Wilkinson was leading here in his Aston Martin, or the Optimum car, anyway, was leading in the first stint, and they had a spin just before the pit stop window opened at Paddock Hill Bend. So Brands Hatch has not been a particularly happy hunting ground for Optimum in recent memory, and the 96 car is going to drop a long way, well out of contention. They'll be outside of the top 10 because everyone is so close together. So a drive-through penalty is going to send him right to the back of the pack.
Yeah, and driving through the pit lane at 50 kilometres an hour feels a lot slower than it is as well. So it'll be 22-second time loss, but feels a lot worse. And I think you're right, Optimum haven't had much luck here, but I'm actually racing that car into next weekend at Nürburgring for GT World Challenge. So hopefully all of that luck's been bad is out of the way, and the good luck filter is reinstalled, and we'll be fine.
I'm sure with you in the wheel, nothing could go wrong. We'll see how you get on at Nürburgring next time, and of course you'll be back in British GT again a little bit later on this year, which we're all looking forward to. Right, this is the GT4 battle that I was looking forward to seeing. Matt Cowley, Jamie Caroline, Ben Green, 1st, 2nd and 3rd in GT4. Again, 3 different makes of cars, so although TF's Aston Martins were supposed to dominate this race, if you believe what all the other teams were saying pre-race, they're not having it all their own way. I would say, though, that Caroline looks a little quicker now than Cowley than he did maybe at the start of the stint.
Yeah, I concur with that statement, and I think Green caught up, but maybe it doesn't look like he's got much more to take there. His job now is to get as close as he can to pick up any scraps if these two clash over each other. 15 minutes, this is going to be aggressive, and I think we'll see slightly closer racing than we've seen from the GT3s, just because of the aerodynamics aren't so strong, so you can follow closer without getting such turbulent air disrupting your own car. So, as I said, Green not staying with him. It looks like Green has picked up a lot of time in that last corner. Cowley isn't really defending, and is giving Caroline a bit of hope that he can just shove the car down the inside, almost what happened to him early on in the stint.
Jamie Caroline, a bit of an overtaking maestro, though. He gained a lot of places at the start in one of the races at Donington. I think it was the first race that he started in the very wet conditions. He has a driver that actually came through the single-seater racing ranks, of course, up to and including British Formula 4 Championship campaign. And now he's made the sidestep over into GT racing, and he's really, really enjoying it. He actually said on social media this week that he thinks he prefers this style of racing. He didn't know whether he would. He didn't really know what to expect. He says he's really enjoying his GT racing with TF Sport, and he's also still working quite closely with Carlin, who were his Formula 4 team. He was up at Knock Hill earlier this week doing some driver tuition for their Formula 4 drivers, and now he's made the pretty lengthy journey down to Brands Hatch to compete, and he's right in the thick of the action, just how he likes it. That Mustang, though, is a tough car to pass, and Matt Cowley himself, a driver who has a lot of single-seater racing experience. In fact, he's a real star of Formula 4 1600 racing. He still does a bit of Formula 4 racing. He competed in the Brands Hatch Formula Ford Festival, and I think, if memory serves, got a top 10 finish in the final last year. So Matt knows all about close racing, so too does Jamie Caroline, and Ben Green, we know, is not afraid to get his elbows out. We saw that in his championship contending campaign a couple of years ago in that car, so it's a pretty feisty trio of drivers, this.
Yeah, definitely, and I think Green's pretty aggressive. I'm not sure he'll be too worried about keeping that car as immaculate as he has got his eyebrows in that picture, so I think he's going to be elbows out. He's not got a championship to worry about, and it's going to be really interesting to see who wants it the most. I don't just mean who drives the fastest, because all doing that, it's who's willing to risk a move that might hurt them in terms of an overall result today.
Well, and from that perspective then, the 97 car can't really afford contact. They're the championship leader. The two cars either side of them are some way back in the points. So in a way, maybe Academy and Century, they can be a bit more aggressive, whereas Jamie Caroline has to think championship. His teammate, the 95 car, is off the podium at the moment. That's the second place car in the points. The 57 car is also off the podium. They're third in points. So for 97, Jamie Caroline, a second place is better than ending up in the gravel because you were too aggressive trying to get the race lead away. Michael O'Brien is starting to look racy again in second. He got the gap back down to Sandy Mitchell to under 7/10 on the previous lap. He was a 10.5 quicker than the leading car. It's just getting that last few car lengths that's tricky, though. The closer you get, the worse that dirty air is. If you ever do find yourself in striking range, therefore, you need to seize that opportunity straight away before you slip back again.
Yeah, and we're obviously seeing a lot cleaner racing in terms of traffic at the moment with the safety car we had. The GT4s all on the back, so it's almost like a race start in terms of how long it will be until they get them. But that should only be another 2 laps. They'll get the Balf car this lap, and that will spice it up, as we always see in this championship. I think the best multi-class racing we ever see across the world is in British GT because of this dynamic that we're treated to.
And there are people every year who are always asking, oh, when are we going to have split grids for GT3 and GT4? Let them have their own race. Well, no, I'd much prefer it this way, because part of endurance racing is dealing with traffic, be it that you're in the quicker car getting past them or the slower car trying to stay out of the way. It's such an integral part of racing, and it does produce some fantastic action. Here we go, look, Sandy Mitchell has got the Ewan Hankey-driven McLaren fresh back out of the pit lane after his puncture to try and put a lap down. The gap came down by another 10th that time as well. It's only half a second between Mitchell and O'Brien, but O'Brien just not having a look in the traffic.
No, we saw that earlier on as well, and at least us at McLaren can't be blamed for any underhand tactics there. Ewan, part of our driver stable, if he was informed to do so, you could have closed the door on Mitchell and boxed them all up, but that's not how we want to conduct our business. So it actually hurt O'Brien the most out of all of that, and we're going to see that gap grow, but we know we're going to get more GT4 cars, so that luck that Mitchell got, will it be reversed next time round?
They're going to catch that lead pack in GT4 pretty much at the end of the race, aren't they? There are 9.5 minutes to go, so just when we get to that crucial point, that's when the track is going to be the busiest. And look at how even that one-back marker has bunched them all together. D. McDonald closed in on O'Brien, Berman closed in on him and shook off the attention slightly of his teammate Patrick Ayala behind. So Berman in that green Ram Racing Mercedes, car number 6, that is still looking for its second podium finish of the season so far, and it's second on the bounce. No, excuse me, tell a lie. They are looking for their first since the first race at Donington Park, the second of the season. They're only one place away from doing it right now. The leading 6 then out of Stirling's, back down towards Clearways. Of course, O'Brien lost some ground there to Sandy Mitchell in the traffic, but I think he's starting to inch back onto the tail of the Lamborghini.
Yeah, agreed. I think Sector 3 now looks like the sector where the McLaren is stronger than the Lamborghini. That's the last 2 corners of the lap. It's not the longest sector, but it's a very important one with the exit onto the pit straight. So, yeah, even riding on board and through the first few corners, it feels like we're only gaining. You can see how close McDonald's is in that rear view camera. It's not actually a mirror there. That's why it's such good quality. But yeah, 8 minutes remaining. Do I think there's anything on the cards here? Unfortunately not, being pessimistic. Now let's hope that the GT4s are kind of the fuse to the fireworks for this race.
The GT4s are in the middle sector right now, which is the sector these cars are starting, so they're not far behind them. They're going to get there before the end of the race. And of course the GT4 battle, well, the top 4 cars are separated by only just over a second. So there they are, look, going through Stirling's. It's still the same order, Cowley, Caroline, Green, but Patrick Kibble has now caught them in the second looking at the TF Sport Aston Martins. 4 cars for the lead as they turn down towards Clearway's corner now, and Jamie Caroline's still in this precarious position. He'll be watching the mirrors. If he sees that 95 car arriving on the back of this pack, does that spur him on a bit more, knowing how close those two are in the championship? Just 1.5 points separating 97 from 95 at the top of the GT4 standings.
Yeah, definitely. And the way the point structure works, the win is worth so much more than second place. I would say the risk is worth the reward in this instance. So even now, I think if he's got half a chance, I think you've got to ask the question of Cowley how much he wants to turn in on you. And I think the hard thing is that we've seen the Mustang being so strong at the end of the straights. So that means it's hard for Caroline to really look at an opportunity. But that 95 car does look strong. We see that damage on the front corner from that contact earlier with Neri, the GT3 car. So it's doing well considering it's missing one of its aerodynamic fins on that right-hand corner for him.
Yeah, they're not just there for show, so you would imagine he's losing a bit of front-end performance, but yeah, lapping quicker than the 3 cars in front on the previous laps. As they head through Hawthorne, the GT3 leaders are going out of Surtees, so it's going to be the last couple of laps, isn't it, that they catch them, and all hell could break loose then. 6 minutes and 40 seconds left on the clock then. Lots of cars being warned for track limits now as well. Everyone using up those lives that Joe mentioned earlier on. 61, the GT4 leader that we're seeing now, the Academy Mustang being warned for the second time about exceeding track limits, as they all now start to push the envelope a little bit as we head into the final few minutes of what's been an enthralling 5th round of the Intelligent Money British GT Championship, and still we don't know who's going to win in either class. Look at this, second place in GT3, O'Brien. Now, is he in danger of watching his mirrors a bit more than looking out in front of him, because Dee McDonald is really applying the pressure, and they've been dropped again on this lap by Sandy Mitchell. I don't know if that was a mistake somewhere for O'Brien, but the gap has definitely grown this time.
Yeah, there's a Century BMW in the background, so I don't know if they got caught up behind him, but yeah, unfortunately Mikey now needs to shift his attention rearward. Mikey's super intelligent, thinks about everything very methodically and well, so unfortunately the win is out of the question for me now, so he just now needs to smash out 3 laps of no mistakes to cement the second place, which is going to really, really help their championship credentials for me. These guys are going around their business in a really, really nice manner.
Yeah, a win and a 6th at Alton, an 8th and a 9th at Donington, but they said themselves they struggled in the wet slightly. Now in dry conditions, though, they've been one of the pace setters. They're second place, they're a 2.5 behind the race leader. But the next external shot we see, I think, should have some GT4 traffic in it. And there we go, Sandy Mitchell at the inside of James Kell in the Speedworks Toyota. That hasn't been quite as much of a potent force in this second stint of the race, it must be said, although they lost out in the pit stop cycle, of course. And they're going to catch it, Joe, at the worst part of the circuit, through Westfield, Dingledale and Sheen. This could get spicy.
Yeah, I'd rather be lucky than good in motorsport, and Mikey did a good job actually, didn't lose too much time, so he's going to now gain over McDonald. But yeah, Sandy has been really lucky with the traffic. It's not a negative to him, we still have to deal with it, but every time I've seen him catch someone, it's on a straight, and it's been all right. I think the gap to Mitchell to O'Brien will be the same, and I just don't think Sandy's going to get enough traffic to give it back to them as we see those lead GT4 cars. So it's probably going to be turn number 8, I reckon, just coming into sector 3, that Sandy Mitchell will catch the 95 TF car. Despite Sandy Mitchell catching that Toyota at an opportune moment, he still lost 7, nearly 8 tenths of a second to O'Brien. So the gap came down. It's 8 tenths now as we ride on board with Rob Pereira in 6th place, trying to get 5th place away from Patrick Kujala. They've got the 57 HHC McLaren to negotiate on their own as well. And Yelmer Berman almost makes contact with it going into Graham Hill Bend. That'll slow him down on the exit. But thankfully it's his teammate behind him, so he would not expect a particularly forceful attack from the 69 car, which is second in the championship, remember. 78 car is leading, and they're only 3 points further behind them, so 78 could come out of this race with the championship lead if they hang on to the race lead, which is certainly not a foregone conclusion. 3 minutes and 40 seconds left on the clock as the lead pack starts to separate a bit. The top 2 getting away now, and then these 4, McDonald, Berman, Kujala and Pereira together for 3rd. But look at the traffic they're going to catch. Now, where are they going to catch them, Joe? Somewhere on the run back towards the final corner, I reckon. Yeah, exactly. Just into sector 3, I think Mitchell's going to have the opportunity to get past the first TF car just before the end of the lap. But then he's got 3 cars he's decided to stay behind from the body language of the car. He should be able to clear 2 in a straight. if they all play ball and stay to one side, that is, which they do. O'Brien's going to want them to go left now, but they stay right, so he's going to go all the way around the outside.
Oh no!
The BMW did the right thing for the BMW, but the wrong thing for us, unfortunately, in terms of looking for a battle for the lead. But then saying that, Mitchell's going to stay behind him here. It'll be difficult to clear both of them on this short straight before Graham Hill. He'll be able to lunge that Aston, but the Aston might block, which is not technically allowed, but frowned upon rather than illegal. And look how close O'Brien is now, and will get a run. Sandy's got to get past that Mustang, which he does, but then the Mustang closes the door on O'Brien, so are we kind of back to where we were and I shouldn't have got excited? I'm not sure now.
Oh, well, the gap's come right down, but that is the last of the traffic for them to deal with. Look at the way Dean McDonald's closed back in again as well. So Michael O'Brien a bit unfortunate there maybe, but as you say, they came out of it much the same way they went into that group of traffic. On the inside goes McDonald. He deals with the last of the back markers that he should have to see for this race, because when they come through next time, they might be going on to the final lap. Frank Pereira up the inside of, oh dear, the 97 car of Jamie Caroline. This has rather spoilt the GT4 battle for the time being.
Ben Green, is he going to be able to follow Pereira through is the only thing I couldn't see out of shot there. Sorry to cut across you.
No, you're right.
But yeah, Frank was super aggressive. He's got one chance to get a position here, and I think that's it. Now they've cleared the GT4 cars, but I think everyone drove well there, I have to say. I think no contact and made it interesting but fair.
Yeah, absolutely. Good driving there all round. We were kind of anticipating fireworks, but they all did a good job. The GT4 battle though is 3 abreast for second place. Oh, and there is contact. How did they get away with that? Jamie Caroline gets elbowed out of the way by Ben Green, who goes into second place, and Caroline did not enjoy that. He dives straight back up the inside of Paddock Hill Bend. He gets second place back, or does he? Patrick Kibble's closing on the pair of them. Aston Martin through into second place. Kibble gets a run up the inside. More argy-bargy. The Aston Martin, the left-hand side of the Aston Martin matches the right now. It's had contact from both sides, and he goes through. Well, they were 3 wide coming through clearways, and I don't think that the car on the outside, which I think was Caroline, wasn't it? I don't think he realised that his teammate Patrick Kibble had made it 3 wide on the inside. There was a big squeeze, and again, on 2 or 3 separate occasions there, 1 or more of these cars could easily have ended up in the barriers.
Yeah, that was cool and stupid in equal measures, I think. I think you've called it right. I don't think Caroline knew that Kibble was on the inside. Amazed that Ben Green didn't defend that into turn 1. That was like an invitation from the Queen to get knighted, and just gave it to Caroline. But we'll see the inside. At that point, it's no one's fault. That's all racing. It's all very tight. No one's doing anything malicious. And then Green just gives him the inside. It's a great move by Caroline to then get it stopped. Caroline leaves him out to dry and almost help the TF car. And then that's ridiculous from 95 to move across like that. If I was Green, I'd be pretty aggrieved with that situation.
Right, deep breath everyone, we've got 1 more lap to go because the time hasn't quite ticked down to 0, so Sandy Mitchell has to survive 1 more lap of this Brands Hatch race to take his and Rob Collard's first victory in the championship. Can they hang on though? Michael O'Brien only 6.5 tenths back. This is the fight going on for 5th. Patrick Ayala and Frank Pereira, 2 of the international stars of the championship, going nose to tail for 5th position then. Mercedes just staying ahead of the Lamborghini for the time being. Matt Cowley's leading GT4, of course, has grown now to 9.5 tenths, so Academy might be on for their first victory as well. And that is Patrick Kibble off the road from 2nd in GT4. So, well,
I'm not going to say Ben Green's guilty, but I bet he didn't get there by himself.
You're thinking the same thing.
Sorry, Ben Green.
He's gone up the inside of Caroline, who goes back on the inside of his teammate and hits him. That will not go down well.
So how was the 95 in front of the 97? That's the other thing. Was it just on that straight that you got the call? But that was 3 rules of motorsport: don't hit teammate, don't hit teammate, don't hit teammate. And that definitely looked like he was loaded into that corner there from the 97 one. And yeah, I'm glad to see the end of the race with these guys, because they're kind of treating these £200,000 cars like Avis hire cars that I had last week in France.
Well, Jamie Caroline, I said he wasn't backwards in coming forwards, but that was, well, like you say, against your teammate, you usually exercise a bit more caution. Anyway, what that means is that Matt Cowley should now have the GT4 victory in hand. Who's second, though? I don't know, really. The checkered flag has just flown for Sandy Mitchell. We missed it in all of the drama. Michael O'Brien second, Dean McDonald third, and Yelmer Berman third, with Patrick Ayala fifth, and Frank Pereira in 6th place. There they are. The lead margin at the end, 6.5 tenths of a second, and the top 4 cars covered by less than 2 seconds on the top 6, covered by 3.7. That's pretty impressive, although of course we didn't have that late safety car. This is the checkered flag, so Sandy Mitchell comes through to take the checkered flag at Brands Hatch over Michael O'Brien in second, Dean McDonald third, and Helmer Berman in fourth. And Frank Pereira nearly got Patrick Ayala at the end there. The GT4 cars have come across the line now as well, with Matt Cowley, the race winner, from Jamie Caroline second, provisionally, let's say, Ben Green in third, and Chris Westmail in fourth, getting ahead of James Kell, I think, there towards the end of the race.
Yeah, that was amazing. I think one more replay of the TFS stints hitting each other at turn one will be interesting, because it was a confusing situation that the 95 was in front and obviously it got the move done, and then it looked like they wasn't particularly happy with the team order there. So yes, awkward. Getting changed in the lorry is always a bit awkward because you're naked with a load of men, but then when you've taken each other out like that, it probably adds a few levels to it, I would suggest.
Yes, both young chargers, of course, both trying to make a name for themselves, and you've made the point before in this championship that team orders are rarely really a factor because everyone's paying to be here, more or less. Certainly the customer drivers are, and those silver drivers, they'll be contributing towards the budget as well for the year, so you've got to let them race, but as we sort of said, when it's your teammate, you need to be extra careful. And in amongst all of that, though, great story in that Academy Motorsport get their first victory in GT4, while Sandy Mitchell and Rob Collard, I reckon, take the championship lead with victory in round number 5 of the Intelligent Money British GT Championship. Second place goes to the Jensen Team Rocket RJN car of Michael O'Brien and James Baldwin, with Angus Fender and Dean McDonald in the number 9 McLaren getting their second, third place finish of the year for 2Cs Motorsport. Yelmer Berman and Ian Loggy are fourth and win in Pro-Am. Patrick Ayala and Sam Dahan right behind them, the 2 Grand Racing cars both in the top 5, with Frank Pereira and Michael Igo's WPI Motorsport Lamborghini 6th, Senna Fielding and Richard Williams 7th, so they didn't quite make the top half dozen, but a really good return to competition for Stella Motorsport and the Audi. Sam Neary and Richard Neary, his father, are 8th for Team ABBA. 9th place for the second 2Cs McLaren of Jordan Witt and Jack Mitchell, with Andrew Howard and Johnny Adam getting a top 10 on their return to the championship. In GT4, like I said, it was Matt Cowley that won the race, with Jordan Albert in the Academy Mustang. Jamie Caroline, second place on the road at least for the 97 TF Sports Squad with Dan Vaughan, and third place goes to Ben Green, the number 42 car, and Andrew Gordon Colebrook for Century Motorsports, so it gives them something to smile about as well. Great to see the 78 car on the top step of the podium, though, isn't it? Sandy Mitchell and Rob Collard. Rob in his first season of British GT competition with Barwell Motorsport, and I reckon they're championship leaders now, Joe, so this is turning into a really solid campaign.
Yeah, I think the focus and attention was on the sister car, obviously, of Keen and Ballon reuniting, and being on it. These guys have quietly gone across their business. I'll stop talking to what I said.
Well driven, though. Did something go wrong? Or?
No.
Oh, yeah, I guess it was a safety car, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was tight, yeah. But
yeah, well driven, though.
So I think when he said did something go wrong, I think that was in the pit stop, understanding how they jumped each other, and I think Mikey might have forgotten that he was blocked by a Land Rover Discovery, which is the first time I've said that in a British GT race. But yeah, great job by these guys. Kind of the second car in the Barwell team, as we referred it to, and I think maybe wrongly at the moment, the silver weight doesn't seem to be penalising them too much, if anything. And it's amazing to see the performance Sandy's putting in against Phil Keane, who we know is rougher than that Lamborghini.
Worth mentioning that the Team Rocket RJN team are not particularly happy, I believe, about the 78 cars slowing on the way out of the pit lane, so we'll wait to see if anything comes of that, but hopefully no penalties, because we like the result on the road to be the end result, and it certainly spices up the championship a little bit. 72 that were leading the way finished 12th, so they don't score anything from that race. Obviously 69 in second place came home 5th, so they score a good handful of points, and the 78 car that was third, they were 14 points off the championship lead, but they've just scored 37.5 points, so they, I think, should be out in front now. In GT4, the 61 Academy Motorsport Mustang, though, great to have that car back on the top step as well. Like I said at the start of the broadcast, Joe, they've been quick all season, they just haven't really been able to put it all together, but today they were quick, they made good overtakes with Jordan Albert in the first half of the race, and then stayed out of trouble critically when it was all kicking off around them in the second half.
Yeah, exactly. I think they had that little bit of pace to obviously be leading, but then stay in the lead, and then all the other guys just lost their heads, in my opinion, and it all just came down like a house of cards, and suddenly we weren't even looking at that Mustang because he was so far up the road, and job done from P8 on the grid. Great job by Albert, by Cowley, and for all the academy team there. Matt Nicol-Jones runs a really good ship.
Provisionally, at least, the 97 car will extend its championship lead, which was 1.5 points over the 95 car. That will go up, but as I said, there was that contact at the end, so I wonder whether maybe there might be a discussion about that after the race, and if so, what the outcome of that is, we don't know yet. But yeah, 97 finished second on the road, and everyone else that did well in GT4 really is quite some way back in the championship. The 58 HHC car didn't finish. 57, though, did get themselves with a 4th place at the end there. Chris Westmail put in a good second stint of the race. But Joe, that was kind of like we anticipated that race would go. A very excitable and energetic opening 10 or 15 minutes. Then it calmed down into that mid-race rhythm that we tend to get here at Brands Hatch. And then a safety car right when we wanted it, but many of the drivers that had a good start to the race didn't, bunched them all together after the safety car, and then it was very, very tense stuff from there to the flag.
Yeah, perfect synopsis. I think without the safety car, RGM would have won that race from the stint that Baldwin did and the pace we then saw from O'Brien. So the safety car changed it and made it very, very interesting. And I think the people that benefited the most are the people you've got next to you there, Kelvin.
Yes, I'm here with the winners. What a fantastic race that was. 2 safety cars, great opportunity for you early on. Rob, how do you feel? Your first win in British GT?
It's absolutely fabulous to get our first win. You know, we've been very close so far this year at Alton Park, and then Donington, sort of the weather turned against us, but you know, the team have bounced back so strong this weekend. Sandy's been amazingly fast in the dry, and yesterday was brilliant, and today he managed to the lead, and it's been fantastic, really good.
Sandy, what was you thinking when you saw that safety car?
I had kind of mixed emotions, you know, because I thought the gap was staying quite similar to the car behind, but I wasn't sure about the Pro-Am cars with the pro drivers maybe coming through the field. So, yeah, I was a bit nervous, but thankfully it was quite long. So then after the safety car wasn't as long. And, yeah, I mean, O'Brien kept me honest. The gap I don't think was ever more than a couple of seconds. And, yeah, really had to be consistent at the front. But we managed that, and, yeah, it means we come away with the win, which is fantastic.
Well, well done, guys. It was a great race to watch. Well done again.
Yeah, cheers.
Yeah, really great to have them on the top step of the podium, as I say. And we tease Rob Collard sometimes for not being a very good qualifier. By his own admission, he's not. But they actually had the second best qualifying average coming into this race. The best was held by the 72 car until this weekend, where they had a bit of a bad qualifying effort. But that 78 car has been qualifying well. It's been racing well, and we know that Barwell know how to put together a championship campaign. So the 78 car, as I said, taking over the championship lead, and Rob Collard, one of those household names really in British motorsport. Great to have him on board, and great to see him having some success. Right, Kelvin, back to you.
The Mustang, it looked absolutely terrific in that stint there. Matt, that must have been pretty good for you. Towards the end there, you looked like you were getting some pressure from the Astons behind, and then that was it. They started fighting with each other, and you had a good gap.
Yeah, pretty much. Jamie Carline gave me pressure the whole way through my stint, to be honest. Never really let off, which was tough. But yeah, towards the last couple of laps, they started dropping back, and I was able to get a bit of clean air, just kind of do consistent pace, and then they started battling, and yeah, just kind of got a bit easier the later the race went on, really.
Jordan, how good does it feel to give the guys at Academy the first win with the Mustang?
Wow, we worked so hard for that. Such a tough start to the season where Alton and Donington we had podiums just gone, and to come here and win, to start from the back and to finish with a win, it's just incredible. And honestly, like I said earlier, massive shout out to my team, Academy and Multimatic, for turning around the performance of the car overnight to the point where we were both flying out there. Just unbelievable. So happy right now. So happy.
Well done, guys. You've every right to be. Well done. Great race.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, huge congratulations to the Academy Motorsport squad, who have had a trying start to the year, but they're up there at the front finally in round number 5 of the championship. The win in the GT4 category goes to them. Sandy Mitchell and Rob Collard winning GT3. Michael O'Brien second with James Baldwin. And Joe, you mentioned that midway through the race, they might have lost out on the win, unfortunately, but they have a win in their pocket already from earlier on in the year. And I really do think that the number 2 car come the end of the season is going to be in contention for the championship. Dean McDonald and Angus Fender then came home third in GT3, and the number 9 McLaren was again on the pace, and 2C's Motorsport learning a lot this year, I think, aren't they?
yeah, any team that gets a car for the first year, they've got to go through everything setup-wise, and it can be a bit of a painful journey in some regards. You have to try all the springs, everything. We at McLaren will help all of our customer teams with information, but to keep it fair, we never share information other teams tell us. So, yeah, you have to go on a fairly long journey to get the car in an optimal handling condition, and they are getting quicker and quicker. That's the positive, and I would say Barwell now with their Lamborghini in the 5th year, they're not really improving. So they get the consistency, but their ultimate pace probably won't improve that much.
Thankfully, their ultimate pace is pretty rapid already, and Rob Collard and Sandy Mitchell use it to their advantage to get their first victory in the British GT Championship. And Rob Collard and Sandy Mitchell will take over the GT3 Championship lead. Right, now we move into Pro-Am, and the Nearys had a bit of a quiet race today, apart from that contact they had with the GT4 Aston Martin, but this has been possibly the best we've seen from Richard Neary, and I think Sam Neary, as we said during the race, really impressing me this year.
Yeah, definitely, and as we said, we're in that old spec Mercedes, so it will have a slightly different BOP, so maybe they actually got a favourable one at the moment, but yeah, as a fact-finding mission, Sam Neary is really showing himself to be there, and as we see, it's hard with all these names, Frank Pereira. I'm not great with names. I can never remember my own family. So when Igo's changing it every week, it's difficult. But yeah, good day for them. I think Igo had a strong stint, kept Proctor behind him, which was no mean feat. And as we saw Loggy in that first part of his stint do a mega job before he kind of got eased to one side by Jordan Witt. And then I think unfortunately Yelmer Berman was a bit of a caged animal. Couldn't really do much here today. Didn't quite have enough pace to make any positions.
Yeah, but still kept the car up there towards the front of the field, and Ian Loggy, with that brilliant defensive drive, as you said, cost him some time to the leaders, but as it happens, the safety car came out anyway, and there was always a high probability of that. Mia Fluitt and Ewan Hankey win the Pro-Am category in GT4, because they're the only Pro-Am entry, but they had a pretty good run going until they had that unfortunate puncture just under the safety car period, actually wasn't it, the second safety car period of the race. And then we get into our GT4 podium, and Century Motorsport, if ever there were a team that needed a good result, I think it was Century Motorsport. They've had a pretty tricky, not only 2020, but last year wasn't quite as successful as they'd have hoped either.
Yeah, exactly, and that car's got a huge amount of potential. I think it's helped bring some drivers who knew the car and have got on top of it this weekend. So hopefully they can keep that driver playing for the rest of the season. It definitely adds a level of competition in that GT4 class.
Yeah, good car to have up there as well. Very different really to any of the other cars in GT4. And in second place it was Jamie Caroline and Dan Vaughan. Now, what do you reckon, Joe? Does Jamie look sheepish at all there? Can you read the body language of the man that just nerfed off his teammate?
With a big smile on his face, I would probably say no. So it'd be interesting to see exactly his take on events. I've only seen it once, so I'm happy to be wrong. Go on, Kelvin, if you could probe them exactly on what you think, or they refusing to comment. We got a modern no comment stance on that one. I'm not sure.
Well, I think we've forgotten, unfortunately, Jordan Albert and Matt Cowley had to get their trophy first. But yes, I think we will in good time have a word with Jamie Caroline and Dan Vaughan, who extend their championship lead in GT4, but obviously in slightly less than ideal circumstances as a result of the contact that they had with their teammate late on there. But hopefully we will get a chance to have a chat with them before too much longer, and that is an important story definitely to keep track of as we move into the next couple of rounds. Kelvin with the TF Sport crew and the championship leaders in GT4.
Wow, what a race. Guys, obviously you were in the car, you were in the race, but for me watching, that was just littered with incidents. No bigger than obviously with you guys. I think on the last lap there with your sister car. Jamie, what happened?
It was a bit of Robbins racing prior to that. Same thing I did to the BMW. You know, you come high and then switch low, and you almost send them a dummy and do this. I did the exact same thing to the sister car as I did to the BMW, but surprisingly, the BMW gave me more room than my teammate did. So you live and you learn. He was behind when I did it to the BMW, so you would have thought he'd know it was coming. If there's a gap, I tend to go for it, as you've just seen. So, yeah, it is what it is. We'll go back and have a look at everything, but I know the move was on and there was a gap there. So,
well, I'm not sure what Patrick will think of that. Obviously, he ended up in the kit litter, but that's something else there. Great stint for you, first of all. I thought it was a fantastic race for you guys, and you continue your good run in the championship.
Yeah, no, it's going well. It's completely different to what I'm used to in the Carrera Cup, but I feel like slowly we're adapting. We did well, all the first 2 rounds, and this one's been no different. Jamie was rapid all weekend, so to not get the pole was unlucky for us. And then my stint was not as easy as I thought with the Toyota. So, but no, it was good. It was solid. And then when I gave the car to Jamie, I thought we were in a good position. And sometimes you can't do anything. You can do nothing wrong and find yourself in some trouble. And I think that's what's happened to us today.
Yeah, well, I thought it was an exceptional race, guys, and you both did very well. So well done.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, he's not sheepish at all, is he, Joe?
No, quite bullish. So that'll be good when I get in the truck and watch those onboard videos back to see how exactly it panned out from that perspective. And I have to say, it always looks different on board, the more realistic vision, and the one we're using externally. Sometimes the angle of the shot makes it better or worse, depending if you're the guilty or innocent party. So, yeah, I'm excited to watch that as a gossiper from the next few rounds to see how that is, and if TF can do anything to alleviate that potential feud.
Yeah, interesting stuff, and this will all be resumed, of course, at Donington Park next time out, our second visit to the Midlands circuit. Very different track to the Brands Hatch Grand Prix layout, but one that does produce good racing. We had some good racing today, though. The start of the race seems like a long time ago, but it was the number 2 McLaren on pole position in the hands of James Baldwin, who really dominated the opening stint of the race. He led the pack into Paddock Hill Bend for the first time, and Rob Collard slotted in line in second place behind him. It was a clean start to the race, but it was a pretty lively opening few laps as drivers tried to make up for loaded grid positions, knowing that track position was going to be tricky to get hold of as the race got underway. Andrew Howard making a welcome return to the championship in the Beachstein car, was running 4th in the early stages and would be at the centre of much of the early action. The number 7 Aston Martin running well, but an AM driver surrounded by Silver Cup entrants in the first part of the race was always likely to have his hands full. In GT4, the HHC McLarens had a pretty quiet race, really, with one car, the 57 example, running wide through the gravel at Paddock Hill Bend in the early stages. Whilst one of the big talking points was this move made by the number 10 McLaren up the inside of Ian Loggie's Ram Racing Mercedes. Loggie, after putting up a brilliant defence throughout most of the first hour, ending up on the grass and losing 2 positions. Drama in amongst traffic for Mike Ligo, who ran wide and let Sam DeHaan through at Druids, and then Igo involved in more contact with the TF Sport Aston Martin and the Lewis Proctor driven Optimum Motorsport McLaren. Then a lap later, the 95 TF Aston Martin got spun out of the GT4 lead as they came out of Druids Corner. They would drop down the order, and it wouldn't be the last time they were off the road in the race. First of 2 safety car periods was brought out after contact saw the 66 race winners from last time, the Team Parker Racing Bentley, off down at Hawthorne. This happened just as the GT4 pit window opened. The Toyota that was leading stayed out a lap longer than everyone else, and that was to prove costly, with TF Sport coming back out with the race lead. On the restart, the number 10 car of Jordan Witt had the lead because it hadn't yet pitted. When the GT3 cars did come in, though, the lead changed hands, and it was Sandy Mitchell that came out in front in the black 78 Lamborghini, getting himself ahead of Michael O'Brien's number 2 McLaren. In the second half of the race, the GT4 battle was fantastic, with Matt Cowley taking the lead immediately away from Jamie Caroline, but never really able to stretch away, whilst James Kell had a moment trying to get out of the way of the GT3 leaders going through the right-hander at Sheen Curve. He rejoined the track, but sadly wasn't quite as quick as that car had been in the first half of the race. Then Jordan Collard had a tyre delamination, which brought out another safety car period, and as the safety car came in and out fairly quickly, the race got back underway with about 20 minutes left on the clock. The second half of the field were busy trying to dig themselves out of the GT4 traffic, whilst the leading 6 started to steal a march on everybody else. And then, rather the theme of the second half of the race was fisticuffs amongst the GT4 contenders. On more than one occasion, Century Motorsports 42 BMW involved in a bit of trading of paint with the TF Sport Aston Martins, both of them on one occasion there as they went 3 wide through Clearways and Clark Curve, and then again into Druids Corner, the 95 car of Patrick Kibble getting his elbows out to reclaim the lost position. Then Kibble went on the attack for second, got past his teammate Caroline into Paddock Hill Bend. Jamie fought back and hit the 95 car, which ended the race in the gravel trap. That could have big championship ramifications. It was a first victory in the championship, though, for Sandy Mitchell and Rob Collard in GT3. They held on to the flag, whilst Matt Cowley and Jordan Albert got Academy's first victory with the Ford Mustang in GT4. Fantastic racing here from Brands Hatch. Join us again next time for more of the same.